aren't web-based games. They want to actually install Halo or whatever and shoot
And
things.
then this is not a machine.
Then you can't do it. But other than that, especially for a student, it's perfect.
Great machines, absolutely.
And they won't be virused, and if they are, you just redo them, and it's just
right. Yep.
180. That's all.
180. That's the.
That's what he got it for.
That's what I got. You probably today you can get
$200 to $300.
$200. You can get.
I get a smaller one with Windows.
Yeah, it's going to be a piece of junk though, and it's going to get virus pretty quick.
I can handle virus.
Oh, okay.
Piece of junk is okay. Any laptop is piece of junk if you don't know how to use it. Virus is scary.
Okay, so I think we should start. Our focus.
Sorry to interrupt. I couldn't access the new module through the website. The library.
It's not in the library. It's in this location.
It's not in the library.
There's a library. There's a new library, and the library is.
What library is that?
I forgot.
So this is the new library, right?
No, I clicked on the library link. That's a mistake.
I see. Sorry, I should update the link also. This is the library location, as I mentioned.
I mentioned in the class last time.
Right, and you probably forgot. So yes, there is content here, and it's building up. But today there are no hands-on sessions. Today is a discussion that we will have. So you actually don't need a computer right now. You just have to listen and participate with me on a concept that we will talk about businesses. Right. The idea is to talk about what's the goal of a business. That's the question I have for you. Why do people do business? Like, what is the fundamental goal?
Okay.
If it's a for-profit business, it's
Money. Make money. Is that the only goal?
That's the primary goal.
Is that a complete answer?
No.
No.
So what is the complete answer for goal? What's the business goal? Purely business. Let's not talk non-profit. Let's not talk humanity and peace, world peace and all that. Just purely from a business perspective. What is the goal of a business?
I took a business class one time many years ago, and the professor said that the number one goal for a for-profit company was to maintain the steady increase of the value of the common stock.
Beautiful. Yes, exactly. The people who invest in the company, they should make a good return on investment. So whatever you make a return on, like if I go to Las Vegas and I lose money, like always, like everybody loses money. But if I play a different game, like take a dollar bill and give it to a magical machine they have there, like put in a dollar bill and get four quarters every single time. You know what that machine is?
The change machine?
Yes. That's the best machine they have.
Yeah.
And so when you get 4 quarters every single time, is that making money?
No.
No, because your return is zero, at least not negative. So you're happy. But most people don't get happy when they don't lose. So the happiness comes from losing money apparently in Vegas. But we are not talking about Vegas, we're talking about business. So when you actually make money profitably, that's the goal, to make a return on investment, to pay back to the shareholder who invested in, he or she invested in your business. You want to give them something more than what they gave you. So they gave you $1, you give them 1.05 back, 5% return, for an example. So it has to be interesting in making money. It has to have a return that you give back or you keep or you reinvest. One of these two. There is a third option, which is charity, that people do. In Christianity, there is the three things that you do with the money you get: you invest, or you save, or you give. Maybe it's religious of some nature, not Christianity, but some other religion. So in business, most companies focus on all three aspects, but from a pure profit-taking and making perspective, is you get 1.05 when you invest $1 into something. Out of the 5 cents you make, you divide and you put something in reinvestment, and in part of it you take profit and spend, maybe use it in whatever way you like. You may not reinvest. You issue dividends to the stockholder, and reinvestment shapes up as value of the stock itself. That's the goal of making money. Now, in terms of if you're running something like a business and you're making some objects, let's call object 1, object 2, object 3, and you're providing these objects to who gets these objects? Who are the people who are receiving it? They're called customers. So they receive your objects. Now the concept I'm going to describe today is this arrow, direction of this arrow is wrong. That should not be the focus. That's the essential summary of our discussion today is going to be about the arrow in some sense. We push objects to the customer is the wrong way of doing business. That's the fundamental premise I'm going to say and describe and tell you why. When you have a customer who you're not giving them what they want, the essential idea that I want to drive towards is when the customer is asking you for something, he is actually demanding you to give them whatever they want, as opposed to you giving them whatever you think they want. That's the difference. So if they demand a pink colored object, and you are giving them a blue object, that's not serving the customer. You give them blue because you make blue objects, but the customer wanted a pink object. You make some objects and give it to the customer, that's wrong. That's what I'm saying is you're driven by demand, not by what you think the customer wants, but actually asking the customer what they want and then give it to them.
That's
So-
not really driven by demand. That's driven by, you're not driven by demand.
You ask the customer, what do you want?
Yeah.
That's a sales order, right? What purchase order? And you serve to that order. Like you produce what they want.
But they didn't want that. They wanted the pink one.
Right. So you don't give them the blue. Don't even start making the blue. Don't even color it blue, or maybe just create a
Don't
transparent
make it
color.
till they order it.
Right. Or maybe up to the point where there's a transparent colored object, but stop. And don't paint it blue until they tell you what they want, and then you paint pink color and then give it to them. But there is another problem in this concept, which is that you pile up an inventory of transparent objects, and you don't want that either.
Unless, of course, it's all digital and it doesn't matter.
It does. I'll tell you why. It does matter.
If it's digital,
Yes. Here is why it matters. So if it is digital, you think about the time you wasted in preparing that. The fundamental object you're dealing with in electronic commerce, when you're selling some software or selling some service, is that there is no object. But there is a person making something, and you wasted amount of time in creating and piling up some work item in a Git repository somewhere, or some piece of code that you created that never got used. That's waste. It's very similar. You have transparent objects that you create in a stack. Same thing applies if you have developers working on something that is not going to actually reach the customer. So you have the customer here, and you create your repository with unneeded objects, and you have people working on it, busy work. That's what I call busy work. You prepare something for the sake of doing something. This is common in large companies. Very common. People just do it for the sake of doing it because they want to show that they're busy, but it's pointless. It's not relevant. And that's the disease of big companies. And yes, you can point fingers now. So the idea that I'm really trying to drive towards is that you have this concept of, let's call it this concept of money, which you can allocate in a fashion which I call capital expenditure. I buy equipment and I store it and put it to use. I hire people and put them to use. Anything that I build up that essentially creates a vehicle for me. So money, let me define this thing. The object I'm trying to really define is when you buy and store stuff, it builds up what is known as an inventory, right? In plain English, what does inventory mean? A pile of goods, stuff, sitting somewhere. A different way of thinking about inventory is the amount of money locked up in your business that doesn't actually flow to the customer. It is the money that you have stuck in a pile somewhere that doesn't flow, doesn't go anywhere. It's locked up. You cannot make use of it because it is sitting there. And same thing applies to goods that are sitting in a godown. You think of Whole Foods and the inventory they have of milk cartons in the back store. Think of code repository and work items done by people in your company, or things like that. You know, the things that are sitting of no use to the customer because they're not going to eventually convert into money. So that's inventory. The second concept is called the idea of what I call is a throughput towards customers. So when you have an inventory, you reduce that inventory, it shrinks. And where does it flow to? It flows to the customer, right? Essentially, the customer is going to get it, and when the customer gets the inventory, you get money. So a process of converting inventory into towards the customer, how speedily can you convert that amount, this dollar amount that is stuck in inventory? How quickly can you send it to the customer? The rate of doing that is the other word I want to describe, which is called throughput. throughput, and I'm just going to call it tput or tput for short. So the amount of the rate at which money is being transferred over in form of goods and services to the customer, in turn, the money that flows back to your business is a throughput. That's the second key concept. Now, how do you actually convert inventory into throughput is the question. What does it take to convert inventory into throughput? Throughput essentially is, as I said, in money terms, it is the money flowing to you, the rate of money flowing to you. Rate. And when it happens, your inventory goes down and your profit, your accumulation of cash goes up. It's an exchange between inventory and dollars in simple terms. So when you have throughput or tput coming back at you, the amount of flow of money, if that is higher, what will happen to the inventory? It will go down, right? So what is that vehicle that you have in your hand that will make this thing happen? That concept or that economic term is called operational expenditure. Whatever you do, you write code, you move stuff, you talk to somebody, sell them an idea, describe a concept, whatever work you do, all of that can be clubbed under operational expenditure. And here what you're doing essentially is converting your inventory and producing throughput. You're shipping your stuff to the customer and customer is giving you money. So the definition of throughput is actually money flowing in, the rate of money flowing inside. The definition of inventory would be the amount of money locked up that you cannot touch. So you have to ship it to the customers to generate cash, generate throughput. Operational expenditure is something that you spend on to make the flow happen. The flow from customer to you in terms of cash. That's what I'm really concerned about. I want that throughput to be high. And for that to be high, I want to be able to provide some product or service to the customer, which is my response to a demand. That is also throughput. And the rate at which, let's draw another picture. When we're talking about some inventory sitting here, and that goes out, depletes, and goes to the customer here. The customer gives you some dollar, and this is the most interesting part to a business, is I want to collect as much dollar as I can at the fastest amount of rate I can, right? And as a parameter I put here is my operational expenditure, and the capacity of my organization to actually meet the demand. There is a parameter to that aspect, and that aspect, what I would call it as a bottleneck wherever it sits, because the capacity that you can serve to a customer essentially gets limited by your bottlenecks wherever they may be in your company. And so now, given these four words that we talked about, inventory, throughput, then we have operational expenditure aspects or OPEX, and the aspect of bottleneck. bottlenecks may be in anywhere in your company. It doesn't have to be at a particular place, but that is the key that you should be focusing on in your software operations, in your Whole Foods store operations, or your Walmart operations. Whatever operations you're doing in the context should be strictly focusing primarily on the bottleneck and keep that thing busy.
And that's what Amazon focuses on.
Exactly. And so Amazon is a beautiful, and don't think of Amazon.com as a cloud company, but think of the Amazon.com retail company, the company that sells stuff. The world's biggest bookstore that was 15, 16 years ago when I first saw Amazon. It's now a phone company apparently, starting today.
Yeah.
For the phone,
Yes. So there are these companies that are making goods and services and widgets and providing it to the customer. Companies like Amazon, companies like Walmart, efficiently deal with their bottleneck situations across their entire company and carefully identify where the bottleneck is. So in Shahul's team, he will have some developers who will be really fast and really efficient in producing whatever output he wants on his team. But then there will be some other example of people that may not be as efficient, may not be as there are people, right? Ups
Bottleneck
and
could be as maybe a technology problem. For example, I want to get the inventory from tons of local suppliers. They want to continue to feed the inventory. My system is not scalable enough to receive that fast
Mm-hmm.
and put that in the inventory system.
Yep.
That is a bottleneck.
That is also a bottleneck. So bottleneck essentially is something
Or anything
that will
that's done manually.
limits your ability to service the demand.
Exactly. Yeah.
If the customer is demanding something, bottleneck is anything that limits your ability to service the customer.
Yeah.
So let's take a story here. Right? Let's think of, a school, a high school, and maybe not a high school, maybe middle school, like younger kids. And I have the responsibility of chaperoning kids and take them all the way to the top of a poo-poo point, for example. Just an example, take that. So we have these 6 kids, call them A, B, C, D, E, F. And the goal is to have all these 6 kids and me reach the top. So I start walking. What happens is this A and B and C are very efficient, very fast. They're fast runners, they keep walking, like Daniel is. And he's very energy efficient and physically fit. He's physically fit, so he runs. And A and B, the C and D guys are like okay, medium. They're able to move along with other people. E is very helpful, but this F guy is really fat like me. F stands for fat. So he's like slow, pathetic, and he cannot actually reach all the way up to the point. And the goal is to have all these 6 kids reach the top. How do we actually accomplish that? So that becomes a challenge, right? You have this distance between kids. They will run wherever they want. The fastest kid will go up way ahead of everybody else. The fat kid will be at the very tail end, and you want to keep all these kids together. What do? How do you solve the problem? Yes.
have you ever watched adventure races?
No.
It's like 6 kids, trying to get 6 kids up the top of the hill. You get a team from point A to point B through some rough terrains. The slower ones, many times they'll put the faster, stronger ones in front of them with like a bungee cord between them.
Yes, exactly.
To pull them along.
Right.
Slows down the faster ones, but it speeds up the slower ones, and the net result is the whole team gets there faster.
Yes, so exactly that is the solution, is that you actually tie these kids through a bungee cord of some sorts and put F at the very beginning and have him lead. The fat guy, let him lead. And the other guys will get frustrated, but essentially you accomplish your goal of getting all these 6 kids up to the top. Because they don't feel inclined to run forward because they are behind the chain in the bungee cord sequence. And the slowest guy is leading, which is the bottleneck here, by the way. And so you all go back to whatever you do after the class is over, and you are excelling in what you're working on, but your organizational structure may not be super interested in you becoming the fastest kid, because what they really worry about is the fat guy, and they want the fat guy to function the fastest ever possible and keep him or her always occupied with work to extract the most out of that entire team. In the consequences that A, B, C, D, E will have some slack time, which is totally okay. The disease of big companies is that they will burden A, B, C, D, E also with unnecessary work, which is wasteful and should be avoided. Instead, focus on F and make him do all the work that he can or she can so that the entire production line is able to service the demand that the customer is placing on. And this, many companies do not realize that it is important to have the other people have some slack time. It doesn't hurt. It is okay for the person A to waste 1 hour because the person A wasting 1 hour does not impact anybody. A minute of waste by person F, the fat guy, is a waste of the entire company. So your focus and your management chain structure's focus essentially is and should be on the bottleneck. And bottleneck, by the way, is not just one person, not just the fat guy, but any place, any structure, any resource, any entity, any organization, any machine, any process, anything it can be that slows things down is the constraint, is what organizational study needs to focus on primarily. What is slowing the entire pipe down, and consciously focus just on the bottleneck, because bottlenecks essentially drive how much capacity you have and how much can you actually serve the customer. The customer demands something, and bottleneck essentially is the limit, the upper bound at which you can serve in terms of providing the solution out to the customer and getting money, generating revenue, is how I think about bottleneck. So it's a keyword you should think of as you proceed towards understanding that, you know, whatever your capacity is.
I like it because it helps you focus on the team, and IT people are terrible at focusing on team.
Yes.
Notoriously terrible.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And so the demand that you have from the customer is likely to be always more than you can serve. And it's a good thing. Can you tell me why? Why should not we have more capacity than and so serve every customer as quickly as we can? Why don't we have that?
And you have wasted investment.
Yes. And if you do that, you know, you unnecessarily waste on hiring not the F, who can probably be cheap. And the fat guy can be cheaper also. So you don't want to hire the best of breed in your company just for the sake of hiring them and spend them top dollar, when the work you have to do is write a Hello World program. You don't want to get the MIT graduate there, right? If you want, if your bottleneck essentially is doing, all they're doing is writing Hello World, let them create Hello World every single moment, hundreds of times every hour. That's the bottleneck. So you don't want an MIT guy there, for example, because it becomes extra capacity, excess capacity, and that is wasteful. And that is one of the reasons why organizations want to not hire expensive people, is because they can get away with what they really want to serve is the bare minimum amount of capacity that they can get away with while making your products profitably delivered to the customer without overspending. That's their goal. So they don't necessarily want to hire the smartest, the brightest. And people don't talk about these things, but it's a fact of life. You do not really want to hire the best and the brightest because they're expensive. You may not need them. Certain situations you absolutely do. And then you hire them. But for every type of job, you don't need, top of the line university graduates. That's not needed. Depends on the work you have. So it's appropriate to align what the work you have in your production chain of making software or making whatever else with what you really need and hire exactly that, not more. Because otherwise it is wasteful. And these bottlenecks essentially define how much throughput can you generate. And when I say throughput, I mean money coming in. Can you generate from the customer? That's the bottleneck that defines it, right? I think you lost some context. So
I heard fat guy, and I was like thinking to myself, am I fat? I
No, that
could
was
be the
me.
bottleneck.
He was
Yeah.
talking about himself.
yeah, so I'll
That's what he
quickly.
said earlier.
I'll quickly summarize. So what we are doing today is describing this concept of how to make money, how businesses make money. So quickly recapping what we discussed up until now is businesses want to make money profitably, get a good return. They make money by producing something that the customer really wants, not by something on their own. They don't want to pile up. We also talked about 4 things, which is inventory. Like, what do you actually have stocked up in your company? Inventory is actually the amount of cash stuck that doesn't seem to move. We want the cash to move towards the bank. The cash is stuck in inventory. We don't want that. We want to deplete the inventory. We do that by injecting more money into the overall process so that the inventory depletes, and it all goes to the customer. Because then customer pays us and we keep that in the bank. That's the ideal place to keep money, is invest or use some other way, but not stuck in inventory. That's one key metric we talked about. Second thing we talked about is throughput. Like how much amount of, so when you think of throughput, it is not what flows to the customer. On the contrary, it is actually the money flowing back from the customer. That's what we are most interested in. So that is my definition of throughput is how much money is coming from the customer, throughput into the company. That's the second thing we talked about. Operational expenditure is the amount of money we spend, the least amount that we can get away with spending to deplete our inventory, to convert that into cash, put that in the bank. And while we do that, we have people, we have resources, we have equipment, plant, machinery, processes, whatever, and we have limitations. And that's when I was talking about the example of 6 kids, A, B, C, D, E, F, F being the fat guy. Take them all towards the top of poo-poo point. How do you do that? Quickly, most efficiently. So you have random kids running around wherever, then the fat guy, the slow guy is always behind. You want to have all these people up on top. What would you do? You tie them with a rope, bungee rope, put the fat guy in the front, and go. That's the way to go. That's the way to solve it. In real life, what it translates to is the manager looking at the fat guy and watching that person very carefully and make sure that he does not even get lunch break. That's the idea, to make money constantly, because you identify the fat guy and keep a watch on him or her and make sure that they perform every single moment and let everybody else enjoy. Have some slack time, but not this guy, because he's the bottleneck. You want to make money. That's practicality. That's how actually things happen. People don't talk like I do, honestly. But it's a fact of life. They identify the bottleneck and keep that bottleneck working all the time. That's what really happens. You may not agree with me, but I have seen it happening. And if you don't agree, I would like to hear some examples, counter stories, how managers behave.
I see where you're going with this, and I think it's brilliant. Going to DevOps, I mean, there really is, I see the connection there.
Yes.
But there's another alternative method of management, which is, have you ever read a book called First Break All the Rules?
Mm-hmm.
The type of management they describe in there is much different. The manager focuses on all the top performers, and the person, the straggler, the F person, if they don't keep up, give them a chance, teach them, train them, but don't focus all your energy on that. That's what managers today often do too much of, focus on the weak point.
Yes.
And not focus on, in this story, if the F doesn't improve performance, then transfer them out, let them find another job or whatever.
Yes. But if the reason I chose this example, because it is easy to relate to, F doesn't actually mean a person.
Understand.
F doesn't mean a person. It is a resource. It can be a factory.
Like I
It
said,
can be a slow
it could be a
machine.
process.
Yeah, it can be a slow
Yeah,
machine.
My initial reaction to what he was saying was like, well, you can't do that in education because then the other kids get bored and then you only get this lower common
Yeah.
denominator education and
Yeah.
and I'm getting my brains all getting all frustrated and mad, and then I'm like, but we're not talking about kids and
Like I
people
said,
in
I think I
schools.
know where you're going.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, essentially it is about operations, because what we are going to really talk about is operations management in the software industry. And you might have heard me talking about this concept of a Toyota production system. Did I give you an example like that?
Yeah.
Where the idea is to optimize manufacturing of
stop the line.
right. Yeah, if you're manufacturing cars and you're producing cars based on what the customer is demanding. I want a blue colored Tesla, not a black one. You don't want to make black one because the customer wanted blue one. So you're making those cars in a factory floor, and every person on the factory floor has this ability to stop production because they found a defect, and you want to correct the defect right away. And it's okay to take a loss of factory shutting down for a moment now, as opposed to after the car ships to somebody, the customer, and then they call you, hey, this thing doesn't work. It's way lot more expensive.
That's the Toyota plan, not the GM plan.
No, let's not talk about GM and Chrysler and Ford is somewhat
They tried
okay.
to implement it, it just
Yes.
didn't really work.
Well, I'm making fun of them because they did exactly the opposite. They didn't stop the poor design of the ignition switches. Now they're paying for it.
Yes. And it's very expensive to fix something afterwards.
Much more expensive.
It's cheaper to fix right away, always.
But those people, those engineers were managed to produce something now, you've got to have it by this deadline, do it now. And they cut corners.
Yeah, and so my analogy of F doesn't really apply to a person, though. I gave that person example. Dealing with people is not like this. They're not that harsh. They're not rough. But you have to be like this and tough and rough with machines. If you have a machine and a process or something else in your entire system of production slow, you need to pay attention that it does not go down. If you have a machine that processes your credit card payments and apparently it is very slow, you need to make sure that either machine gets upgraded to a bigger machine or make sure that you're constantly processing your credit card transactions through that machine all the time, never goes down. Otherwise, every other machine that you have in your operations functions at a healthy rate, but is having a slack time, and you are underutilizing your most critical bottleneck resource, which essentially generates to making money for your organization. And so you want to actually carefully pay attention to that bottleneck. That was the thing we discussed. So bottlenecks decide throughput in your process. And bottlenecks cannot necessarily be improved. It is actually a good idea to have a bottleneck in some sense, because to increase the bottleneck capacity, you have to spend capital expenditure. You have to hire a bright guy or invest in a new factory or new plant or new equipment or new machines, which requires money. If you do not have that much amount of money to actually invest and increase the bottleneck, you may have to live with it, and that's okay because you are not spending, but you are constantly putting that to use, which is fine. A different way of thinking about the same thing, now that suppose you have money and you actually increase the capacity of that particular bottleneck element, what happens in that case? This is not a bottleneck anymore.
Something else is the bottleneck.
Something else the bottleneck, right? The bottleneck jumps somewhere else. So you have to now in your manufacturing supply chain, you have to identify where the new bottleneck is and go after that and make sure it is fully loaded and always working all the time. It doesn't have to be a person though. It can be anything in your supply manufacturing process, operations process, to make sure that you are servicing the customer and generating throughput of cash coming into the company, into your business. And we also talked about the analogy of A slacking is okay, but F slacking is not, which is critical. You heard me say that. So when we are looking at these bottlenecks shifting around as we work on things, we identify where the crux is, where the crunch is. And in software industry, what we do is we create ideas, implement these ideas into some application, some components, and we put them together and provide that to the customer because that's what customer wanted to begin with from a requirements perspective. And so we create these ideas, and it's an idea pipeline flowing towards the customer, as we discussed, as an analogy to a factory floor, where we are shipping our ideas implemented in software towards a customer, right? You look surprised. If you did not hear me before, tell me if you did. You heard this idea of idea factory. Have you heard of it before me talking about it? Good. Yeah, I don't want you to lose it. So in the context of, like we discussed, going again there, we have people type A and people type F. The F as the slow guy, A the fast guy. In a workflow situation, you can have people like A producing something and giving it to the person who is slow. What happens to the inventory in such a case? Where does the inventory pile up? Work items. When you're working on something, A is fast and F is, as you know, slow. So what happens to the inventory? Where does it pile up? Right here at the input, at the inbox for F. At whatever F is going to take from the inbox, work on it, and then produce the output. Right? You get inbox and email in your inbox, you do the work item, then you put it in your outbox, and it goes to the next guy in terms of process flow. So the inventory will pile up right at this location because A is fast in producing what they want to do, and then F is slow, so the thing gets piled up here, and that becomes an indicator of bottleneck. This is how you go and identify a bottleneck in your overall system. On the contrary, if you have F producing something and giving it to A, where does the inventory pile up? It doesn't. Right? So think of how do you identify where the bottleneck may be, what are the indicators that you will see, and how do you actually go and identify a bottleneck? The fat guy may not be actually physically fat. Depends on what they're doing, how they perform, how they're doing, what their skill sets are in terms of software development, and what constraints they might have on tool sets. Maybe the machine is slow, maybe they're using a Chromebook, who knows? Things like that. Another situation might be in which case you have A producing something and F producing something, and these together go in some form of an assembly. So you put things together, and so you have an inventory piled up here and not here. And so that is an indication that your bottleneck is somewhere else, not here. So this is how you go to identify where the bottleneck is. So I'm just giving you an example. An inventory in the context of software is bugs or issues. Like we talked about the last time, I talked about creating an issue in GitHub. That's what an indicator of inventory in some fashion in software. So wherever you have lots of bugs accumulating in anybody's inbox or in anybody's ticket system, that will give you a sense of where the bottleneck may be. What exactly is causing you to go and study what's going on from an operations perspective, what exactly might be the bottleneck that's happening. Another case, if it is not actually becoming an assembly, is that you have this person A making some part and person B making another part. And then you have these parts sitting, and you need to be able to monitor what components of software that you produced are sitting at what stage inside the organization as you ship things along. Now, in the context of the analogy that I described in terms of the 4 keywords I used, which was inventory, throughput, capital expenditure, sorry, no, not capital, operational expenditure, and bottleneck. You will read a whole lot more if you go study textbooks on operations management. These are the key things you will get to study in a classical textbook. I'll give you the name of it. The name of the book is called The Goal. It is by Eliyahu Goldratt. And by the way, this is a pretty boring book. Oh, I have slept through this book so many times, I cannot describe. It's a operations management textbook in MBA courses, and it is very boring to read, but it's beautiful if you actually read. Lots of things here that you will see applied in case of operations of any sorts, whether it is physical operations of a factory or software operations. There is another good book on similar nature. I'll give you a link on how these concepts apply to computer science and DevOps. The concept of DevOps. People talk about DevOps as if DevOps is a person. It is not. Uh, it is absolutely not. So we talk about DevOps and what exactly it is. It is a combination word. It's developers and operations working together in a way that will produce what? Throughput. To reduce inventory. And to create throughput, to create profit,
Reduce bottleneck.
don't reduce bottleneck. Keep the bottleneck occupied. You want to keep the bottleneck occupied.
True.
You don't have to reduce the, don't expand the capacity of the bottleneck because it may be wasteful.
Yeah.
If you think that there is a need when you have big demand and small capacity, you want to increase your capacity, and that's okay. But don't go beyond. Don't make a big C like this. Don't make a big capacity with a small demand.
Yeah.
So you want to increase your capacity just about that,
Yeah.
but not too much. So don't overspend is what I'm saying in DevOps or in anywhere in life in general. Don't overspend. Spend carefully.
Reduce the bottleneck means the same as increasing the throughput.
So bottleneck is essentially wherever you have your capacity less than demand or equal to demand. This is the indication of bottleneck.
Not necessarily, right? Sometimes you have lesser number of resources working on a project which require more. Let's say you need a project to get 50 people, but you only put 30 people on the project.
Right. So you put 30
It's not
people
a
on.
bottleneck.
It may not be a bottleneck, but the key way to look at bottleneck is when you have not able to service your demand.
Okay.
It's about demand.
Okay.
It's about what the customer wants.
Got it.
Because what we are really interested in is the money coming into our company.
Yeah.
That is the primary idea, right? You want to get as much money as you can by servicing the customer demand. Everything that does not drive money coming into the company is irrelevant. It's absolutely pointless. Don't do it. It's wasteful. You might see in large companies people doing busy work, and I call it a disease because it is pointless. People do that without thinking how will it actually convert into money. So don't do that. It is wasteful. It is bad. Just avoidable. And that's how you define bottleneck is a signal where you are not able to service the demand. And that's you might have to live with it unless you are able to make it a bigger C. Then you are able to service the demand faster. But then making a C bigger has a cost to it. And that cost is capital expenditure sometimes. Capital expenditure as in buying some new equipment, new machinery, new cloud instances, who knows, whatever that may be. New software, new developers. People don't think of developers as capital expenditure in classic accounting terms. But the way I define increasing capacity in whatever fashion, I call it capital expenditure. Whenever you are
long-term OpEx.
Yeah.
Long-term commitment to OpEx is almost the same as capital.
Yes. So when an accountant will talk capital expenditure, they will not include human resources and salary as capital expenditure. But in my way of defining it, capital expenditure is anything that increases your capacity to make it bigger. And operational expenditure is something that shrinks your inventory and converts into dollars. It's a different way of thinking about essentially the same ideas, but accountant will not agree. So when you're talking about accounting, use their definition, not this. Go ahead.
So last week, somehow we talked a little bit about Facebook and the DevOps model and what they were able to accomplish. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is that, if we were to say, what Facebook does now in terms of implementing DevOps in order to be able to distribute code all around the globe, in all of these disparate, basically data center environments, how like they do that model, you described it briefly. If we were to say that they didn't have that ability now, today, but they needed to have what they can accomplish, what they can actually do today, and then they had to understand what the gap is in order to get to that place, then that gap is the bottleneck, right? In generic terms, meaning, hey, we're Facebook, we've got, all these billions of users, and we need to be able to do what we can do. In other words, like if they were to try and figure out what would we need to actually, what resources would we need to be able to allocate in order to accomplish that task. So I realize I'm not being really clear with what I'm trying to say, but the relevance to me is DevOps. In other words, like 5 years ago, they wouldn't have been able to accomplish that, or if the cloud infrastructure wasn't built out the way it is today. But something's happened. Obviously, the evolution of all of these resources and the technology and everything is advanced so that they could accomplish that. So the relevance to me is DevOps today, just generically, is able to accomplish some pretty incredible things that 2 years ago wouldn't have been possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is pretty fascinating.
Yep.
As it relates to this whole thing about bottlenecks and stuff, because look at the revenue model that Facebook has, and look at how, just using that company alone, I know a lot of other companies are, kind of riding that coattail in terms of the model, in terms of how they're doing things. But just if you just look at that one company alone in isolation, that's pretty revolutionary, considering 5 years ago maybe no company on the planet was able to do that.
Yep.
And now, how many companies can do that?
Yep.
And it's all because of, I think in general terms, all the things that you're talking about. If again, in an abstraction, you're saying, the ability to deploy code, code in a non-standard, way, because up until 5 years ago, there was only a certain way to deploy code, and it wasn't what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say, other than bottlenecks and DevOps and the technology is pretty incredible about what's transpired.
Yep.
Just in
Yep.
terms of that one simple example.
Mm-hmm. And what it gives you, doing this, thinking of your operations in a different way, that essentially gives you agility to be able to change quickly based on what customer needs are and address to what their changing demands are. Like tomorrow you want to maybe able to not make pink objects that you were selling, but instead some purple objects that suddenly come in vogue and customers demand that. You should have the ability to quickly change, and that is agility, to be able to do it quickly at a moment's notice without waiting for any other factors that may not apply, but instead do it faster than the competition. If you're able to do it before everybody else, you have a game to play and you can win. If
Right,
you don't have agility, you cannot.
And that to me, because to me, agility is an abstract concept. I mean, it's very practical and it's very real. But 5 years ago, if you went to any IT conference and someone talked about agility, it would really have like a narrow scope. You'd be talking about software development, for example. It would kind of be defined to that. But now, agility means you can apply that to an individual. Hey, is this person agile? Can they get thrown 7 different tasks and be agile and kind of choose the right way to perform a task? What's expected of individuals now in the marketplace is much different than it was. People get defined on whether or not you can be fast thinking and basically, are you an agile person? It's like that adjective. It's not about.
This is what dictionary defines agility. Is the power of moving quickly and easily, nimbleness, the ability to think and draw conclusions quickly. That's the classic dictionary.com definition. If you apply and how people talk about agile in the context of computer science and in the context of IT and development of software and services, they have very much similar meaning. There is no other difference. The key thing that helps them become agile are the difference essentially boils down to how they operate. It's not about a software. It's not about a tool. It's about the way of thinking, how you solve your problem, and how quickly do you solve it. It is exactly about that. It's about doing what this dictionary definition says. That's what agility is, and that's what agile software is. And it translates to teams being agile to produce software and services for the customer most efficiently, as quickly, at the lowest possible cost, without hiring your big company, big university graduates. Do it cheaply so you can do it profitably. That's what agile essentially boils down to, is you're able to get what you want by putting a team of people together that is affordable to you and produce the thing that your customers want, in time, in budget, always, repeatably. That's what agility brings you.
Also, avoid exponentially scaling up the resources as the demand grows.
Right, so
Right.
the demand grows and you want to scale your
Keep
resource.
on adding, throwing more and more resources. Would that be agility as well?
It
So
can
let's say
be,
I have
but
200 developers and I have 10 operations resources. Okay. Now I double the development resources. Would I double the operational resources? No.
it may not be necessary, and that's where tools come into play.
Yeah.
It-
Would you define that as an agility?
Yes, the ability
Okay.
to think in terms of what the future is looking like, because now you are looking at the future upcoming demand and you're able to service that demand by hiring more people, adding more resources in your equipment or your machinery or whatever your factory or whatever you're making. You are able to see what's coming up and do it appropriately. That is agility, indeed, to be able to respond quickly. And so to think and draw conclusions quickly, that's a clear definition. So if you're able to see what's coming and react to it very quickly before other people are, you are agile. And it applies to just the dictionary definition. There's no other way of thinking about this concept as such. Now, tools that we will talk about and use heavily are going to help you, like what used to take a 15% team for an IT operations person to do, you can do it on your own sitting right here without even going anywhere. And that kind of agility and ability to scale yourself and provide and do the work that 15 people would do early on is an indication of what the tool set evolution is. And tools help you with accomplishing what you want, but they themselves are not, in a sense, you cannot call the tools itself agile. Agile is a way of operating your business. It's a way of thinking about it. It's a way of making sure that your developers and your operations and sometimes your QA people work together, and these roles are blending very rapidly. Very rapidly. So you will probably see that some companies are renaming these as devs.
Oh, yes, that.
No, the T is gone.
Here you go.
T is going.
Because of the test-based development.
Yes. The T is going, it's all dev. So either you
You
code,
need a separate tester.
Huh?
Everything gets automatically tested.
yes. Everything. So there used to be this SDE and SDET, and even before that, software design engineer in test and software development engineer. There used to be a software test engineer also. That breed disappeared. Now
Yeah.
this breed is also disappearing soon.
I wonder at some point with the cloud picking up more, like as more and more business getting into the cloud, there will be a complete blend of dev and ops where there's ops is gone or dev is gone. There's nothing called ops, nothing called dev.
Yeah, it'll be a
At some
person. It'll be a person that contributes
Yeah,
to your overall value chain.
right.
That will be the new animal or the new breed. That will happen. It's not there yet. We don't have that yet in most companies. There are people who write code and the code works in their machine just fine. And then there are people who take this code and put it on a .com to make it work. And those are the ops people.
And support the availability.
Yeah. All aspects, right?
Yeah.
The scaling and ability to service it, they are the ops people, and the people who develop the code are the dev people. And if you have in an old style model, there used to be a wall in between, so you cannot have the ops person talk to the dev.
Exactly.
You have to
Yeah.
go file an issue and file a ticket and then proceed. That used to be, that is still a case in many cases, many organizations, still a case.
Well,
Yes.
in a lot of the bigger organizations, there's even a third group in between there, which.
Many layers. And
Yeah.
these layers need to go. That's what DevOps is doing. Essentially, these layers are going. Don't take that as layoffs. But yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I do if the ops people are not willing to change,
Right.
because I've managed those groups for several years, and I've been telling them, especially the last 3 or 4 years, I've been telling them, if you want to stay in this career for more than 5 to 10 years, you better start changing. Better start learning some code, some scripting, because times are changing. You know? Right now, in server setup and infrastructure, we're already there. In just a few short years, we're going to be there in network engineering as well.
But when it goes the other way around as well, if the developers do not understand or learn operations, they are in trouble as well, because there's not going to be someone setting up a DNS, there's not someone going to set up the virtual IP addresses and etc. The developer has to do that and support it.
But that's going to software-defined networks. Today, software-defined networks operate in the data center and are eliminating jobs for network engineers in the data center. In 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that throughout the whole network.
But networking is one aspect of it, right? Storage, scaling down, and then how fast the storage should be. How do you scale up the application? How do you troubleshoot the production outages? All performance issues, all these things, this is right now is being done in operations.
Yeah,
This has to go to development side.
development doesn't want to deal with it.
They don't want
They
to.
don't want to deal with it.
I have been
That's
going
why
through
all
this
these
now right
tools
now.
we're learning are going to come into play.
Yep.
They won't have to deal with it at the level that people deal with it, the operations engineers do today. It'll all be software.
So instead of calling our ops team, they just call Heroku when she doesn't work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
I know a lot of
SDN,
CEOs are
you know
not
what
gonna
SDN
lie.
stands for?
They need
Yeah,
somebody's
what?
head in.
SDN stands for this.
Yes, yeah.
That's nothing.
But like I said, 5 to 10 years,
It will change. It will
It
change.
will change.
Yes.
Hey, how are we gonna make money? Let's get to what's real here.
Really.
How are we gonna make money?
You need to, in fact, that's one of the things I have here, which is the thing I said first time, is you need to think about the context of, there are two ways of making money, at least in this class. Either you work on your own, become a consultant, or you work for a particular opportunity you want and you want to get hired in that opportunity. So that's the two focus elements you need to have on your own, which basically boils down to looking at specific job postings that you have in mind, identifying your skills needed, so skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, and call them out. What is needed to that opportunity you have in mind for getting a job? And then you do your own inventory, and this inventory is not the definition I said before, the different inventory, which is you look at what do you have, what do I got. So it is me, I have the skill number 1, me, I have the skill number 2, me, I have skill number, I don't have. Let's go focus on that and align that 1 to 1. And if I don't have that, how will I get it? And build it up in form of credible evidence. That's what I want you to focus on. Credible evidence. You create evidence to show that you have a story to be able to tell against this particular skill that is needed for the job that you want by doing an inventory of yourself. What do I got? What am I missing? How does it map 1 to 1 with the job opportunity you have in mind? And be able to showcase that I have what it takes. Please talk to me, because I have what it takes to do the job you need done. And here is how is my evidence stacking up to show that I am credible. And that shows up not by me sending you a resume, but it shows up by itself, by visiting and Google searches and LinkedIn profiles, referrals, networking, interaction, so physical presentation, all things count. So focusing on that is critical as you in the next 2 months that we have in the class. Focus on identifying what job or jobs, maybe 2 or 3. Pick a dream job. pick a medium-sized jobs for you that you can maybe jump onto the dream job and target these opportunities in form of specific skills that you want to be able to adopt and show that you have what it takes. And essentially this translates to exactly what I'm describing is you have the skills 2, 3, and you compare that with what you got, and you have it, you don't, you build it. And do that on a Excel spreadsheet, no kidding. Exactly do that on an Excel spreadsheet. Prepare a tab for a job you have in mind and look at what skills are they looking for in that particular job. Do I have that skill? Yes. Do I have this? Yes. No, I don't. I need to build it up. I need to identify a project and do that project by learning it here and then demonstrating that I can do it and show them that yes, I have. That's the way to fill the bridge the gap of what I call skills gap. And that's what, who was using the word skills gap? Somebody was using the word.
I used it when I talked about that balloon application, the balloon thing that had all the classes,
I see.
and they would let you identify your skills gap. You put in what
Maybe
application
yes.
or what job title you want, and it says these are the skills you wanted, and then here's
Yep.
classes you can take to fill in the gaps.
So here's what I suggest. Let us do ping me for a one-on-one time and identify, before you ping me on one-on-one, identify jobs that you may be interested in. Like pick 3 jobs and in the area of your interest and identify what is missing in your portfolio, and then build out a project that will help you address that gap, and do that one-on-one. I'm open to do. I told you already. I'm open to any one-on-one anytime with you guys. It's such a small group, totally doable. Please do it. And I emailed out to each one of you, I think a few weeks ago, asking please do a one-on-one. Nobody replied. I was amazed. I guess you don't need me, but that's okay.
Not at the moment.
So here's something, and I appreciate what you're offering. Validate something for me. So what I was blathering about Facebook in terms of what they're doing now, deploying code. To me, that's incredible. What you articulated, kind of succinctly last week about how they deploy it, using peer networks and all that. That to me is an incredible model on how to do something globally. To me, just to validate, do you think that that's a model that a lot of IT entities would want to create?
No,
So
because nobody's that big.
What's that?
Nobody's that big. There are like few companies that actually need that kind of solution, and they have it. So if
Well,
you
and
know,
then now that Facebook tells everybody, hey, we just did be a BitTorrent, they can do it. It's not that complicated.
the
Coming up
problem.
with data in the first place.
So having this knowledge, having this information is helpful, but it doesn't translate to money. That's what I'm saying. Knowing that how Facebook does is one thing, but working on that particular job at Facebook is a completely different thing. And if you want to target Facebook, great. But that particular aspect of Facebook and BitTorrent and whatever we discussed may not apply to this company here in Seattle. Right? It may not be applicable. Their data may not be that big. It's not relevant. It's great that you know about it. We don't care.
But-
You're MIT to us, right? We don't need you.
But if you know 12,000 other user examples, that can be useful. I know at least at Amazon, there was always people calling us saying, hey, we want to do this. How do we do this? What other customers have done using your stuff to do this? And so a lot of times we would end up pushing them toward cloud consultants because we could tell them the architecture, but they still wanted someone to kind of prove a concept and do it better. But these were people that knew 12 million ways to do things.
Right.
So have you ever tried doing a return on Amazon? A product return?
Yeah.
How difficult it is?
Pretty easy.
Yes. Why?
Customer
Why is it so
satisfaction
easy?
is very important to
Customer
them.
satisfaction is super important, right? For
Number
Amazon.
one thing.
So what they do is they're actually in the business of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know who the Peter is and who Paul is
Mhm.
in this context of Amazon?
I do not.
So Paul and Peter. So you rob Peter to pay Paul, and the Paul is customer. And who's Peter? Employees. they make them work so hard that they're doing it. They effectively, you have a variety of things. They don't make any profit in the overall company apparently. They kind of sort of do. They make they make like $100 million of profit, which is less than what Microsoft employees donate every year.
Wow.
Something like that. So the point here is that the employees that they hire, they will take a generalist, a person who's not specifically aware of a particular technology, but hire those who can work on any type of problem. They don't have to be super specialist, don't have to be like the person who solved this, what was that, heartbleed bug. They don't need specialists like that. The person who identified the heartbleed bug and fixed it is a specialist. You don't need security researchers to work specifically in the day-to-day operations in developing Amazon.com or its cloud services. You just need mainstream developers. And that's what they focus on. They do not need highly skilled, super highly skilled, high-end technology developers at all. So what they're looking for is smartness of general level of coding. Can you do a variety of different types of jobs so they can place you fungibly? They treat you as currency. If you can do this, great. If you're done, do this now. And so that gives you employability. If you are a super specialized security expert, you can get only a very special kind of job at a very high rate of payment, no doubt. But that may not be a long-term employment guarantee. So if you're super skilled, you will get certain very high-end jobs and ton of money, no doubt there. But the mass is actually in the midstream. The real cheap developers are found in India. I'm not kidding. I come from there. They work for you for $1 an hour and produce beautiful code. They may not exactly do what you want, but they'll do good enough. The real expensive developers are available, like the security researchers I mentioned. They're up on the top of the pyramid. They sit here. They demand exorbitant amount of money and they get paid. And they'll do probably one job in 10 years and then they're done. Most of us are here at various levels, which means we don't need to specifically do only one thing, but somewhat generalize in the area that we are working on broadly. So we focus our areas that we want to work on, and that's what every mainstream people do. And I'm assuming we are mainstream, because this is not India, and you haven't solved the heartbleed bug yet. So that's the assumption. With that said, the idea is essentially look at job postings of your interest. Very practical advice. Look at job postings, read them with me. Do it with me. Open up a job posting, identify the language in there is somewhat flowery, sometimes cryptic, but if you read carefully, there will be specific skills needed. And I can go over with you as to what skills they talk about. And you need to have an inventory, basically a spreadsheet of what inventory skills I have. Skill number 1, 2, 3. And for every skill, I need to have a story to tell. Story number 1, 2, 3. So prepare this 9-box matrix for you for every skill. Do I have a story to tell? Yes. Another story here, another here. Okay, tell me a story when you did this here. It should be just ready to hand off to anybody who just talks to you. That's how I would do it. That's what I would recommend that you do by studying your specific job post that you have in mind and identify skills they need and develop your stories for every skill. The story should be something, I'll give you an example. Maybe these examples need to be one-on-one, so I can do that also. But essentially, for every skill that you have, you need to have a good sounding, personalized story that is memorable and in very short sentences. Like May talks about this 20 word pitch, something, elevator pitch, 20-second pitch. She talks about it. So these pitches, the elevator pitch, the 20-second pitch, make sure you have these pitches here. These boxes need to contain your pitches. and be able to service these pitches whenever you have a demand. You have to have the inventory ready and focusing on what the job posting that you are targeting, and you can maybe target 1, 2, 3 posts to be precise. Identify 3 opportunities, look at indeed.com, wherever that posting is, find out, print them out, put them on your table, and handwrite over what the skill that they're looking for, and tabulate these skills right here in a spreadsheet like this, 1, 2, and 3, and then discuss with yourself, your family, your friends, me, her, and identify what stories can you build from your past experience that showcases that you have the skill that is needed, and then go after those jobs 1, 2, and 3 and win. That's a direct way of making money. That's the best way to make money, by the way. It actually work for somebody. It's exchanging time to get paid. It give your time, get paid. That's the mainstream way of making money for everybody.
But I thought like the cloud and DevOps and everything. I thought there was a gold mine out there. Like who's going to make all this money off of
No,
that?
there is no gold mine. There is no gold mine. Let me be honest. There is no shortcut to success. There is no gold mine. It is work. You work and you get paid. If you're going to do a job, that's how it works. You're working for somebody, you exchange your time, you get money. That's the only way to make money. If you're working for an employer, if you're working for your own, that's a different story. We can talk about that also. It's a different game though. It's a different game. So it depends on what your interest is. If you want to talk about the other side, I can do that also, but
You can do both, right?
I do both personally.
Both,
I
yeah.
do both. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I do both, and I want to do more of this than that, indeed, because that gives me what I want, which I think all of you want, is financial freedom. That you don't have to work. You want to work, but don't have to work. That's what you want. That's what I call retirement. Is when I don't have to work. I still want to work, and I will work. And my dad used to work until like 1 or 2 years ago. He used to still work, and that's what I want. He was retired long, long ago, but he worked because he wanted to. That's my definition of retirement. That's the goal. That's an individual's goal that I have, which I believe many of you might have. We'll get to that, and that's the focus of this. The purpose of the class is essentially that, to get you what you want. Not the ultimate financial retirement, I don't promise that big a thing, but very short-term focused. What do I want? Is that a job? Let's focus on it. Let's get to it. Is there a career track that I want to build on my own as my business? Let's get that direction and go there. And we are slowly doing it. Why not? Do that more. But align your energies. Don't go random places. Like, in fact, to be pinpointing, don't go to Facebook and BitTorrent, because it is like only that company will do it, maybe one more, and nobody else is interested. Yes, it is sweet and it is awesome to talk about. So yes, talk about it, but that's not a job opportunity. Unfortunately, not for this group. It's a specialist work, and they're taken.
So, oh my gosh, this is a hard conversation to get into because it's like very philosophical, and it's there's no quote unquote right answer. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I think there's a lot of value in terms of understanding, like if you're networking and you're talking to very smart IT people, I think there's a lot of value being able to understand that model, for example. And you're right, because I don't think it applies to every entity, right? In this region, maybe there's 5 companies that, truly would, do something like that. But that withstanding, I think there's a lot of value in being able to articulate in a succinct way that technology and how it's being implemented. And there's a lot of value in that.
Yep, you become what I call this bright and shiny object when you talk about it. And so people look at bright and shiny objects, and what do? They pick them up. The unfortunate part is, if they don't like them, they throw them away right away. So if you want to become a bright and shiny object, great. But have the next logical thing so that you keep that pleasure of holding you in their hands so they can hold you long term. And so having a transient bright and shiny, like on a time scale, you have a bright and shiny peak and then somebody throws you back. That's not what we want. We want to actually be sustaining. So we get picked up and sustain, or maybe even grow slowly, maybe rapidly. It's up to us. So yes, having these stories at the back of your pocket, important. So pick them up, but focus essentially on what the employment offer or the job offer, job posting actually asking for. Sometimes they're vague by design, and sometimes they're not. But get to the point where you really get the skills and are able to highlight these stories at a moment's notice. Like somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night, tell me an opportunity where you showed your agility. Yeah, here, one example. Second, one more. Here, one more. Oh, give me third one. Here it is. Show me an example where you failed really, really hard. What's the answer? You know what my answer is? My answer is I fail every single day. And I do it deliberately because I enjoy failure. The only difference is I don't repeat that same failure. I make a new mistake every single day and I love it. That's my answer. And some people like it, some people don't. I don't care. But that's my answer. So the answer essentially is that if you actually fail, it tells that you're doing something, as opposed to the person who's not doing anything never fails. And if you never fail, you never did anything, because failure will happen. It's a guarantee. Right? Failure will happen. We are human, right? We are not machines. Even machines fail. So I will fail, and I'm proud to be a human. Nothing wrong in there. That's my answer. So these are stories you should have already. If somebody like pinpoints you, okay, show me the last time when you failed. You tell them it's not the last time. I just failed 5 seconds ago. I'm sorry to talk to you. I'm pathetic.
You remember you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm pathetic. So don't talk to her about interview advice, not me.
Hey, a question. Do you recall when we went to that EMC storage thing? It was where I won that Apple
I see.
prize.
Yes, I do.
And so the reason why I wanted to bring that up is real quick, the speaker, one of the things he said is that there's really a strong business opportunity for EMC. And in part, he was saying there are a ton of businesses that have legacy platforms that are generating huge amounts of revenue. And so the problem is how to get those revenue generating platforms into other other places like in the cloud or virtualization.
Bingo.
And so
There's your gold mine.
yeah, so that's the question is, in general, I'm saying that in a very simplistic way. I realize that, but what's your take on that as being, the next area of growth for IT?
Yep.
Because I'm assuming DevOps plays right into that.
Yep. So the classic IT that many large organizations and even government organizations have is that they have this old style way of operating. They have machines running in some rack somewhere in a building, and there are people that are maintaining them forever and for years and years, and they are spending huge amount of money on some licenses that are not even needed anymore. The machines are up and hard to keep up and running because they're old, they're almost dying. You want to migrate them over somewhere in a more stable environment. The easiest way of doing that is actually creating what is known as a P to V migration, a physical to virtual migration. A physical computer like you have there, and this computer is becoming old, it is dying. So what you do is you take an entire snapshot of the entire image as is. You get Windows and all the software and all the viruses and everything together. Yes, you will get virus when you image. You get the virus also. And you take the whole thing and put that inside a virtual machine and run it in a hypervisor of some sorts. Yes.
That's actually pretty easy to do, and a lot of legacy companies have done it to,
Yes.
not 100%, but 50, 60, 70%. It's pretty simple to do, but what's difficult to do is to convert those applications into an elastic cloud application?
That is hard. You have to
That's
rewrite the
difficult. I mean, that's
application.
where I think the gold mine is. Well, maybe it's a platform as a service thing, but you know, if we can crack that nut and sell it, there's a gold mine there. There's a lot of companies that are sitting with these old infrastructures and seeing the cloud, and their own internal IT people are telling them that's just a bunch of baloney. The cloud is nothing more than outsourced hosting services.
So the old applications, they need to be rewritten. There is an opportunity here to rewrite the apps. And if you are going to take on an opportunity where you're doing it for some company, you want to outsource this work to India or maybe some other country. And there are these services that you probably know of. If you don't, then go Odesk. Have you heard of this thing? No? Wow, okay, then let me just quickly tell you. There are companies like Odesk are like eBay, but for people. So you can buy cheap people, they'll work for you, outsource your work to India, Thailand, whatever country, Uruguay, and they'll work for you. You define what you want, they'll develop software for you and give it to you for a predetermined price. And the prices can be $1 or $2 per hour. Odesk, elance.com, odesk.com, and bunch others. These companies are essentially doing the role of eBay when it comes to people. People are selling their services. You put a job posting there, somebody in India or other country will take that job, and you give them whatever price you agree with them, and you monitor them remotely. They will work for you, they produce software, and you can have old apps rewritten and put them in cloud for some entity here. The challenge these companies that are the people sitting away from this country, like Odesk, people who are contracting on Odesk or Elance, have the challenge that they do not have access to the customer. So the gold mine opportunity you're mentioning about is that if there is a customer who has money, you know them, you are in this country in US, so you have access to the customer. You can outsource this work to somebody in Odesk or Elance and have them subcontract for you, and you take that output and give it to the customer. That's an opportunity to make money. I have friends who do that like this. They live in this country, the workers live in India.
How do you address intellectual property?
So in this Odesk website, you put in your IP contract and mention that it is a work for hire, which means all IP belong to you.
But is that honored? Like the U.S. Law in terms of intellectual property and right may not apply internationally. So how do you protect your code from not being generated?
It will be stolen.
The toughest thing about that thing that business model that you just said is the relationship with the customer. And so you can get the people in Elance and Odesk, but if you don't have, you have to sell the customer. That's the hardest part right there.
Yeah. So the customer here, who has the money, and you have access to them. That is the biggest strength you have. Outsource the item of work, which is writing code, to somebody else. Even if you don't know how to write code, you can still take the work item and outsource it, get it developed, and sell it. And so act as a program manager instead of developer. But you interface with the customer, and this is where the most of the profits are. Like you can probably keep 50% of the overall deal here and give the 50% out to somebody in Odesk and still make money, a whole lot of money there.
I didn't catch that.
What he's saying is this connection between you and the customer is most important thing, not this.
Yeah, because this part, the development part is replaceable, right? But so when you were talking about the intellectual property, what's going to keep this person from going off and doing something else? It's that person in Odesk doesn't have that connection to the customer.
So this is the critical link here. They cannot, poor guy in India cannot even reach the customer.
Okay, I think what I understand.
Okay, so yeah, so
my
what it
understanding
is, Michael makes widgets and I make $1 billion and it's all legacy code.
Mhm.
And then I say, well, I want to put all of that, up into the cloud. I don't know how to do it. So I'm going to go to Odesk and contract and they're going to take my legacy
No,
code.
they'll not do it magically. You need a person who, because now you have millions of dollars, so you become the customer.
Yeah.
Somebody in this class will become the person who is managing the entire transition of old code to new code. Take that work item from you, you pay them, and that person will take that work from you, but actually outsource it to India.
No, conceptually I get all that. But where is the protection for me and my code that I own? My internet.
It will be out. It will be leaked.
Yeah,
So
and
you have to take care absolutely, because once you go out to countries like Uruguay or India, you can absolutely assume that your code will be available anywhere you want for free on Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
It might show up there. Who knows? That will happen. So it's a given. Now, having understood that, you take whatever precaution you can and live with it if you want to go that route. That happens, by the way. It doesn't have to happen with India specific. Anytime you give code to somebody else, they have equal a possibility of leaking that code to some other entity that you don't want it to go. So that protection you have to take care of yourself. It's a problem you have to solve. There is no easy solution to it. People will steal if they can.
A lot of times people are only giving Odesk a simple problem to solve. Well, maybe not a simple problem, but a problem to solve. And not, hey, here's all my code, do something with it.
Yeah.
But I need a widget that plugs into my code that works with my API that does this. Things like that, rather than giving them the entire farm.
So Amazon has an interesting service on this aspect, by the way. What's the name of the service?
Amazon.
Something like it's a bad word in some language.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
I never heard of it.
Yeah, Amazon.
widgets.
Turk. Turk. Mechanical Turk.
Mechanical Turk.
Yeah. Turk. Mechanical Turk. That's the service. Mechanical Turk. So here is what they do. Amazon has this service. It's Mechanical Turk. And guess what they do?
They do things that's hard for computers to do.
Yeah. So
Is this all
as
machine learning?
no, this is people
It's the
doing
opposite.
people
It's
doing
what
grunt work.
machines can't do easily
Gotcha.
that you need humans to do.
And so if you
But
go
it's a lot of
here,
busy work.
so here it is. There are two parts to it. Make money, get results. Two parts. How do you make money?
By being a jerk.
By being a Mechanical Turk. So you get peanuts, or even smaller than peanuts sometimes. So a Mechanical Turk would do what? I meet him and I see his business card. So I take a picture with my iPhone, and that's it. And next morning I see that the iPhone business card is now transcribed into nicely written, handwritten into my address book, shows up magically. And it is not just optical character recognition,
Because those still only work.
because there is a dude in India doing this. Right? That's a Mechanical Turk. And it is actually derogatory in some language. Somebody was telling me that use the word Mechanical Turk is derogatory or
Yeah.
of some sort.
Turk, I think is.
Right.
It's a derogatory term in
Sure.
some places.
Yeah, sure.
So that's where they apparently have a service like this. Amazon. This is Amazon service.
Like for Getty Images, when they have those 10 gazillion million images, but you need to be able to search them by blue shirt. Well, then it means they have to be tagged by blue shirt for people, for pictures of humans with blue shirt. So someone's got to go through and look at 10 gazillion photos and tag this one with blue shirt, this one with elephant, this one with purple stars, so that you can look all those crap things up.
So what doctors do, they give prescription, right? Sometimes they just speech record. They whatever they write when you go see a doctor, they speak into a microphone.
It gets transcribed.
That WAV file goes to India through Mechanical Turk, and somebody over there will type it out, and will be back to the doctor's computer automatically in clean written text. That happens through Mechanical Turk. There are companies in India do just this. Make money part, the blue part. The red part is the get result part, which the doctor does, is make use of this service. So that's Mechanical Turk from Amazon. Now why did I say that? I said that in the context of what this Odesk is doing, where you are making use of for a specific project. If the project is very, very clearly defined that I give you 1 minute long sound file and you give me a plain text file back. So I give you this, you give me back text file. That is a well-defined work item. You put a hit. A hit is here. What is a hit? It is human intelligence task. That's a hit. So somebody who's human will listen to the sound file 1 minute long and convert into a text file and give you the result. That's a very clearly defined work item. Sorry?
It's a tough job.
I know. And so somebody will do it. And let's see the pricing of hits. Here. So find hits now. Let's look at some example. Here is the reward, 8 cents. Poor guy.
Each minute you get 8 cents.
It may be something else. It says extract purchased item from a shopping receipt. That's the work item. Okay. Description is to transcribe all the purchased items from and total from a shopping receipt. And hits available are 31289 hits.
What does
And
that mean? What does that mean?
That means there's
Human-
31,000 receipts to transcribe at
work item.
8 cents a hit.
Hit is
Or
a
8
work
cents
item.
A receipt.
Hit is human intelligence task. It's a work item.
Oh, work item, okay.
So-
Unit of work.
So here, another hit, contact lookup. Visit websites and find all the email addresses of the contact person. That's a hit. They'll give you 2 cents for it. Somebody's doing it, by the way. I'm not kidding. They're doing
This
it.
service has been going on for like 10 years now, and people use this like crazy.
There are 29,095 hit items available, and the reward is 2 cents per hit.
Per hit.
Per hit.
Right.
Yeah, somebody in India will gladly do it. I'm sure. Absolutely, why not? Think of some poor town in India. They have nothing else to do. They'll be doing this and make 2 cents happily. They know how to read English. They may not know how to speak English, but they know how to read it comfortably. So why not do it?
So if I extrapolating or taking this paradigm forward, legacy codes, legacy platform, legacy code that generates, there's a lot of value, generates a lot of revenue, and it's in a state that can't keep on going. And then you basically use an equivalent type of mechanism, ODES or what have you. It gets basically converted or workable, and now can work in a more modern, technological environment.
Yep.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that's not really going to be a money-making enterprise, right?
Money-making opportunity is interfacing with the customer.
Okay.
That's where the opportunity is, not in actual writing the code. Because the outsourcing can be done, but going to Odesk is easy. Succeeding at Odesk is a different game.
Yeah.
To succeed at Odesk, you really need to know how to talk Hindi if you're going to India. Because they'll talk their accent. And it's so hard to understand them. You probably ran into some of those.
Yeah.
Right.
I've actually worked with Indian outsourcing before, and people we hired were network engineers, brilliant people, very well educated. Their accent could not be understood
Yep.
unless it was someone who worked with them a lot.
Yes.
We couldn't use them to directly interface with customers.
Impossible.
Impossible.
They cannot.
And they even had programs within their company to learn Americanize their accent. And it's still tough for them
Yes,
to
it is tough.
understand them. And that was the big problem that we had. So we had to have the interface between them. Someone in IT who could work with them, and a lot of times, since there was, in India, there's
Time gap.
time gap there. A lot of times it was by text, email, and so forth.
Yep.
And that once we got that worked out, then it was great
Yep.
opportunity for both of us.
So 7 years ago, I used to work with a bunch of companies in Taiwan. And so what I used to do is start a chat session with them on Skype. And they wanted to do a phone conversation. And I said, okay, let's do phone, but we need to have chat also. That's the only way I can actually talk. So I will talk something and then I'll type it and ask them to read it. Oh, did you understand me? And they say, yeah, yeah. And they're smart people. The problem is language. And they think that they know English and I think I know Chinese, but no, that's not true. It's not true.
So, so kind of again taking your paradigm forward, DevOps in my mind would be relevant because once the code is completed, it has to be validated and verified. Meaning somebody in the DevOps model or implementing a DevOps model needs to take the newly generated code that's been done offshore, and you need to make sure that it passes all of the verification, testing, blah, 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 so that it acts like the legacy platform that's generating all the revenue, right? You're not going to migrate.
They can write those tests, the developers can write those tests right into the code they're developing.
So in the context of word you used, completed code, there is no such thing.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a completed code. The only time you can call it complete when the customer pays you.
Okay. So I'm fishing for the opportunity here still. So is this where companies that have legacy platforms generating lots of revenue and they haven't implemented a continuous integration model or approach are now going to do that when they get their code back? So in other words, is that the opportunity?
You know, can I give you an example? So this is something that you and I have been doing. So we went and talked to King County, the government, and they have lots of legacy code. Stuff people have been working on for 25 years. Their whole career was writing this one app, you know, and they support that one app. And you know, so are they going to continuously update if they move it to the cloud? They don't want to move to the cloud because there's people are like they're stick in the muds and they're like, I don't want to do this. Amazon sounds scary, you know, and so there's anyway. So you can do all this stuff. You can move their app to the cloud, but that's why when we were talking earlier about the customer relationship part, it's like actually getting them to move.
Changing the culture is harder than changing code, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
get,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so when you
Yes.
say
Yes.
get
Yes.
them to do the continuing the constant evolution of the code, that's a real shift for most
Yes.
of these companies.
Well,
And-
and I guess I would just argue that, you know, the government model, which is basically, you know, workers are sanctioned or, you know, they have tenure or whatever, they're protected, is a much different model than,
You think?
It,
You
you know,
think,
go,
but-
you know,
But the people who worked at HP for 45 years, and they've done anything useful in the last 22, but they're still there, and they're certainly not going to learn anything new.
but
No.
won't the marketplace take care of HP and won't the marketplace
Eventually.
so
take care of these?
market is slow in
So-
such situations. Market
HP
is
should be
slow.
killed a long time ago if it was going to get
Ouch.
market to take care of it. Hasn't
Ouch.
invented anything in a long time.
Yes. So that you know is about HP. But on a refreshing note, I heard the King County executive say that he wants King County to be the best government ever. That's a refreshing change coming from a government executive. Just think about it. And I will be speaking about DevOps to King County next week. So the idea that you just described is essentially they want to change. It's not that you know the old style way of operating a government. Even they are changing. They will change. The biggest challenge they will have is actually a culture change, like you said. It's not about changing code. It's not about continuous integration. In fact, DevOps is not actually about code. It's about changing the way you operate, changing the way you think, changing the way to service your customer in time, every single time, within budget, without fail. It is about that. It's not about chef, nor about puppet, nor any other tool. These tools are there to help you do what you really want to do, to give you all the things you need to make yourself agile in a manner you can service your customer. It is about that business. It gives you the almost inhuman or superhuman capability to address your customer needs. But it is not about you know the tool itself. And yes, we will use the tool and yes, we will operate it and do whatever you want to do with it. But it's not about the tool though. It's about changing how people think to be able to service your customer who gives you money. It's about that.
Another question is, if DevOps is so integrated, right, the dev portion and the operations, so are there consulting opportunities, because you're coming in as an outsider, right? How do you integrate into their or supposedly already integrated environments,
Mhm.
right? So what's the money making as
The
an outsider?
money making opportunity, as I said, two parts to it: consult and working as an employee. Working as an employee, both these areas, you will have opportunity to make money. This as a salary, this as your fee, commission, whatever you call it.
Selling a service.
You sell your service, you get paid your remuneration from the contract you have, and in here you get salary. So there are two ways of making money: employee versus contractor.
But contractor, meaning you actually, you're temporary as part of the team, right?
No,
Or
I'm
do
not
you
saying
mean-
contractor as in V- at Microsoft. I'm not saying that. I'm
Oh.
saying contractor as in TCS. That's what I'm saying. As in, as a company yourself who's selling your services to somebody else. That's what I'm saying. Like where you sign the contract. That's what I mean, a contractor. You are signing the contract with your client, with your customer.
How do you take a project, like how can they carve out a piece that, you can do inside the company, basically?
Depends on how big the company is. For really large companies, it's probably still the route that you go work for a larger company and become a contractor with the other company. That's one way. But that's again more like employment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you work for, let give an example of Microsoft and TCS. You work as an employee here and they are a contractor here. Versus you work as an employee here. You're essentially an employee. They are a contractor, not you. Right? So both these roles are actually employee roles. They're not a contractor role. This company is a contractor. When I'm talking about contract, I'm talking about you directly entering into a contract with them. That is hard to pull off because you're not an employee anymore. That's what I'm talking about when I say contract. This is what I'm talking about.
What's an example of that?
An example of this?
Yeah, what you said is hard to do. What's an example of that?
An example of that would be this company. Let's take the newest contractor company with Microsoft. What's the name? Nyamode. Nyamode.com. It's a Redmond-based company, founded by my friend. Started a few years ago, and he contracts with Microsoft. That's an example.
You need to be an approved contractor in order to.
Yes, he is now an approved contractor with Microsoft.
It is
Approved vendor.
harder, yeah. You need to have a lot of internal contracts.
Lots of you need to do the entire business development and software development and delivery and everything, the whole game. So he does it. He's doing it now. But that's what I mean by a contract relationship with a big company.
But what type of projects are they taking? Like they taking
They
just
do
a
everything.
few features versus
No, they do the whole service.
The entire product
So,
somewhere?
like this particular company will do some marketing operations for Microsoft. Will produce a launch, create a product launch for Microsoft, or do some specific work like tagging. You might have seen those, colorful tags that you take a picture on the phone and do something with it in some places, or some universities might have it. So they produce that software and then provide that service to companies and universities. So they have their own product set. I think it's the company's product is called knowandact.com. That's their product, but take a look at that at some point. It's not relevant, but the idea is that's an example of what this company is doing with Microsoft and with Amazon and with Boeing. So a bunch of different target customers that this company has taken on to build and develop and deliver services. That's what I call a contractor.
So how about in the DevOps area, what type of projects are, companies
In
are
the
willing to-
DevOps area, the sweet opportunities that I see, the best way to discover them is go to Indeed.com and find out. And so his company is hiring right there. And in fact, he may be hiring. Just talk to him.
They're hiring a cloud engineer, I know that.
Yeah, we have a principal cloud engineer.
Your HR contacted me.
Oh, okay.
I
Are
was
you
wondering if you,
interested?
I did wonder if you were referring me
I
or
can
if,
refer you, I can get $2,500.
So yeah, go ahead, do that.
Take us all to ice cream?
Yeah, I'll do that, for sure. If she comes to Expedia.
Is there lots of travel involved?
No,
No.
it's in,
Yeah.
no
I
problem.
It's in Bellevue. It's in probably
Yeah, that's
Eastgate Park and Ride.
commuting hell.
We lost our
And no
cloud-
travel.
We lost our cloud engineer to our neighbor, who's at the cloud company for travel expenses, Concur.
Concur
Oh,
Technologies.
They're cool. I've done user testing for them. They'll pay $200 to go play with their little app. I've
Nice.
done it twice. That's cool.
Wow,
Concur.
That's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So Concur Technologies, expense management software as a service.
They use a lot of cloud stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, so example of Concur will use a DevOps engineer because what they want to do is look at employee expense reports. So employees go travel, like she wants to travel, and she will go
And I can
stay
use a
in.
little Concur app, and it links up with when I book my
Yeah.
hotels and I book my stuff on the Concur app that my company uses. And then I just take any pictures of any receipts that weren't on my company credit card, which is already linked with that.
Do you have the Concur app?
Yeah, I do.
So can you project?
Probably.
See if you can project to air.
Let's see, I gotta turn my Wi-Fi on first.
So turn on the Wi-Fi, connect to Cloud Genius and project to air so they can see what Concur app does.
I'm finding my Concur.
So when you're familiar with this concept of employee expense reimbursement, right? Employees go travel, they stay in a hotel, get a rental car, air ticket, food, and some other expenditure. They'll collect all the receipts and do something with it to produce and give it to the accounting person. Then accounting person will review and audit and everything and examine and verify and
First you
give them a
gotta go to
check.
your boss and get approval,
Yeah, there's a workflow set up.
little workflow. And
So
I
that's
do
what.
not have it on my
Wildly
That's
phone
okay.
right now.
So that's essentially what Concur will do is in their cloud. So they will have an app on the cloud on the phone. So you can then take pictures of your receipts.
But
They will
what's
do
nice is that if you already have if your company buys into the whole thing, then your company credit card gets linked to it. So by default, all your expenses, anything you charge your company credit card already gets put in here. So then when you go and file an expense report, you say, I want this 1 week period. And then they say, here's the expenses we already have for you. Do you want to use all these? You go, yes, 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 and just checkbox them all down.
And associate
and then anything
receipts.
you did with cash or any other receipts you have, you take photos of, just load those up in there. And then it wants you to, usually you have to itemize your hotel, but that's like a few more clicks. So like say this part's food service and this part was the tax and this part was the room. And then you say, great, file, and then it goes to your boss and your boss says approve, and then it goes to accounting and they say approve, and you get a check and you're auto deposited. And the whole system is like 10 minutes to file expense reports versus hours beforehand and not having to keep receipts everywhere and all of that garbage. It's way easier.
They provide the travel services as well now.
And then company.
So
Yeah, they're competing with Agentia. We have Agentia, the corporate travel company.
Yeah.
They're competing with
So the corporate travel part is they load all the corporate travel rules into it, like, hey, I'm not a vice president, I don't get to fly first class, and my company made a deal with United that we have to fly them 45% of the time to get this 10% discount. And our preferred vendors are Marriott and Avis for other things. And we have to stay at things that are within these rates for these cities. It puts all those rules into their system so that when I go and say I need to go to Cleveland, it says, hey, here's a flight that is within policy. And if you can't find any flights within policy, or if you choose one not, it'll make you write a little thing. And then it goes to your boss and says, hey, they're doing something out of policy. Just you. And then that'll goes in here, and then you can look up your schedule and your flights, all again, all through your Concur app. and
You know,
your expenses.
I've never heard anybody who actually likes using them.
It's not about liking, it's about
The
workflow.
new app that came out this year is actually really nice. It's really slick. I really enjoy it. It's
So-
way easier than anything I've used.
The thing we should think about when you talk about, it goes to the boss, BOSS, or the accountant in the bank, and how does the flow actually work? And the thing to really think about is how is Concur implementing these applications in the cloud? So can somebody take a guess? Like what's going on behind the scenes? What services are running in the cloud to make this happen? When you do something with the phone and push a button, and then what?
So you have a web app.
When you have something goes to the boss, what does it mean? What goes to the boss?
Transactional email,
Transactional email through
SMS, or
Yep.
or
any kind of
send grid or
notification.
whatever.
That's the notification part. But what's happening on the back end? That what does this app on the phone interacting with? What is that service?
Well, so the other elements to that are there's what form of authentication is being used, right? Because we're talking about identifying information, financial information, and or.
So she logs into the app, right?
Yeah. Okay, so
So
that's
it's
where
going-
that element's taken care of.
It's going to either a PaaS or a SaaS.
So
type
it-
document.
Mostly it's a SaaS from Concur in this case. So how Concur has implemented that SaaS in the cloud is the question that you should think about what they could have done. And that becomes
Yeah, that's me. I'm sorry.
so the ideas would be that you have a client application on the phone somewhere. You probably have a bunch of services running in the cloud that this client app connects to. So this Concur technology, concur.com, will run a machine in the cloud somewhere where this app will connect to and send data. And your boss may have either an application or a machine that he's working on concur.com website that when he gets notified, he will pull up that data down from there and look at, okay, check, everything okay. And that okay button that he clicks goes back here again. And then the accountant gets notified. The accountant will again look at a browser or her own machine or some sorts, and then pull that data down and say, did the employee submit? Yes. Did they give receipt? Yes. Did the boss approve? Yes. Okay, then
And
go.
They don't do that. So fully automated, there is no accountant involved at all.
Because of policy or rules that the company may have set.
Well, if they exceed the policy, they cannot submit this for the final thing. It has to go through multiple layers of approval. So there's another workflow kicks in if they're exceeding the policy.
Right. So in many companies, like in case of my previous company, we had a limit of $100. If you go above that, then you need to provide a receipt. Otherwise, you don't even need to provide a receipt. You can just submit.
So Concur allows you to set all
Yeah.
the policies.
So the customer of Concur, like
customer account.
customers of Concur, will set the policies that they want for their implementation, and then follow that policy or workflow
And
this or
Concur
workflow
has
that.
no business once you sign up the software as a service, and they're out of the business. They don't have any involvement with you. So it's up to you to manage the policy, manage the workflow, everything.
Yep. So you decide what rules that your company will follow. So let's take Concur Technology, and they have the software available to say EMC, and EMC employees will then use the system. Now EMC will set its policies on how the money should flow, what rules and internal usage practices will be followed within the EMC company, and that decision is up to EMC. Concur doesn't play that role. All role that they do is to maintain the backend and keep it running and provide the application, and maybe occasionally brand it for EMC, for example. They might brand it. I don't know if they do.
And he asked about the authentication, right? Concur allows you to integrate with any type of your
AD.
corporate authentication system. So we
Active
integrate
Directory or LDAP
exactly.
or whatever.
So we integrate Concur with our internal Active Directory. So that means when I log into Concur, it uses my domain credentials to log into the Concur. It knows who I am.
Even though you have your own internal, you have a competitor to Concur, you use Concur internally at Expedia?
No.
Oh, okay.
It goes to the cloud, but it uses the Expedia domain authentication
Yeah.
to log into Concur.
Which is essentially a pass-through authentication, right?
Yeah.
Token-based, right?
Single sign-on.
This is kind of-
You know what single sign-on does is, like, as you log into this, where is that thing? Yeah, when you log out of here and you log in, that login method operates through your Active Directory or LDAP or some other authentication server in your company, or like in case of Macintosh, it will be some Mac-based server. They'll get that single sign-on token and pass it on to the external cloud service. You might have seen this same example when we did the previous class on Google Apps. I think it'll be there. I'll just quickly point to you where that thing is. You can find it here and go to domain admins. And single sign-on will be in authentication somewhere. Users, not here. Security, advanced settings, and single sign-on. This is the exact element we are talking about. It's a SAML-based single sign-on service, allows you to authenticate user accounts for web applications. For example, for desktop applications, you still need to use, so read only this portion, the blue portion. So a Concur app will be a web application, and you will use the SAML-based single sign-on service. So once you log on to your machine using Google Apps on a Chromebook, then you don't need to log on to Concur website again, because they'll take the SAML token and use that to log into Concur or log into Salesforce or log into some other service, all through one sign-on. That's the single sign-on concept. You don't have to log into multiple accounts in multiple locations over and over again, because this guy will pass the tokens through SSO.
Which leads to a much better customer experience.
Yes,
right?
user experience for the internal employees.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
English, the rate at which the cloud consumption is growing, and I think that at some point the small startups and small companies would need some support in setting up the cloud and DevOps and automation, deployment, etc. If they will need to still hire someone to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an opportunity where you can set up a consulting firm? Okay, it's an outsourcing. You don't need to have full-time employees to do that. You tell us, we will set this up.
Yes, there are companies coming up like this, by the way,
Okay.
in which the idea is that not everybody has DevOps expertise in their house, and you want the agility, but you cannot afford a full-time person. So you essentially use services provided by a third-party company that provides you the services you need with a well-defined scope. So the scope can be, help me with a particular challenge I have, as I make sure that my product cycle goes through smoothly because I don't have staff.
Mm-hmm.
Help me with another idea that, help me consult in my company, in my organization, so that my employees really understand a new way of thinking, a new way of doing stuff. Because we are so ingrained doing the old way that we want to think about something new we don't even know. Some of us know, but not everybody knows. And if it comes from somebody from outside telling us that this is a new idea, that you should think about how you can make your business operations much more agile compared to what you're currently doing, that becomes another consulting opportunity in itself.
Basic, as I saw something on the Amazon site, what do you call it?
Partners.
No, mechanical turk. Someone posted that they want to set up a email for their company.
Hmm.
So basically, they want to have their company.com email in a cloud.
Yeah.
Just to set this up.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
If you find an opportunity posted on Mechanical Turk,
Mm-hmm.
you should not focus on that.
No, I'm just saying.
Right.
So those are the things people are looking for.
I know.
For
There
help,
is a
right?
need. There's
Yeah.
a need, and who will post on this particular request on Mechanical Turk? Who knows the fact that if it doesn't work out, he doesn't worry about losing those 2 cents or 8 cents.
Yeah.
So he just gives a shot.
Yep.
If it fails, that's okay. Move on. Throw those 10 cents. If it works, okay. But most companies would not go mechanical Turk with this kind of an opportunity to migrate their email to, say, a cloud-based system, right?
Yeah, it's usually much more repetitive,
Yeah, I
brainless type
understand.
of tasks.
So boring tasks, essentially.
Busy work.
Busy
So,
work.
but there's the companies who needs, okay, I need to set up an email, I need to set up a few cloud machine, I need to have some e-commerce business started in the cloud, I want someone to manage that business. I don't want to have full time staff to do that.
A good place to start to look at like what companies are out there that already do that
Uh-huh.
is the Amazon partner network. So Amazon has, you go to their webpage and AWS webpage.
APN. I think I occasionally receive email from them.
Oh, okay.
Amazon Partner Network.
Yeah.
So what do? They set it up only for Amazon?
No, they're
their
just
focus.
companies that have said, hey, we will consult.
What companies do is if they are specializing in consulting with Amazon services, they will get listed here as vendors that will help you do whatever you want to do.
And
Let's
Amazon
say
has preferred partners
so-
and premier partners. And those are ones Amazon's actually worked with a lot and that kind of thing. And then there's like anybody and their brother can actually sign up directory. And that's what the consulting partner and technology partners are right there.
So if you're a consulting organization that specializes in providing some consulting opportunity to a business, and you use Amazon services as one of the potential solutions that you offer, then you get yourself listed here, because once you do, then you can get found, get discovered. And so find APN consulting partners, you get discovered here by, see these companies like Cognizant and Second Watch, and here you can go by region. So I want to go find a partner in North America West region in this country, and with that type of cloud migration service and with the experience on Hadoop. Let's say search. So I should give me a short list of companies that already have that kind of skill set. So I get Accenture,
135
Capgemini.
Consulting partners. Wow. And some of those guys are only going to take, Accenture, DataPipe, etc. They won't do a deal with a company that's less than $100,000. But Capgemini, but there's several, Wipro is another big one. But 8K up there, right below Wipro. One more down. There you go, 8K. 8K is one that works with SMBs in particular. We used to refer a lot of business to 8K because we're willing to do deals that were $20,000 or even $10,000 deals for customers. And 8K is always hiring people.
Anand Kumar.
Well, yeah, I met him. He's a good guy.
Yeah. So that's essentially one way to expose your business as a consulting partner doing Hadoop with Amazon.
Yeah.
A similar analogous example is partners.microsoft.com.
Just if you don't ever want to be seen.
Huh?
If you don't want your company to ever be seen.
Now you are hitting me. Is that the idea?
How many people actually go to partners.microsoft.com to get a partner?
Both.
Tons do on Amazon. I know that. I don't know what
I am listed here.
So
somewhere.
you talk about this, the services. So before I was doing this stuff, I had a company that was doing services, and we were selling to small businesses, and it's a hard thing to do because
SMB markets are hard.
Because these people do not have money to spend, and so the cost of sales is huge. You can convince them, and then you finally get a $5,000 project, and they're just busting you with $5,000. You spend 2 months working on a project, and they're like, "Oh man, okay, I don't know. You should really do all of this."
Yeah, that's why a lot of those bigger guys won't do anything less than a big project for like a big company.
Yep.
DataPipe is a big story with Unilever, how they got them onto us. And,
cheap customers are the worst.
SMB's hard.
Actually, selling is hard. It's hard at any level, like biggest levels
It
and
is.
smallest levels.
Much longer. You got a 9 to 12 month selling cycle anytime you deal with an enterprise.
Yep.
So you got to be able to front that time, money, effort without any money till you get the payoff,
Do
hopefully.
we know anything about that?
And then you're gonna lose, sometimes.
Well, probability is how you're gonna lose, right?
Yeah.
Because it comes down to stats. You know, you're
Yeah.
gonna be successful X amount of times, and you know, how do you build your business model around that level of probability? You know, whatever that might be.
It's a risk. I mean,
you-
that's what I've mostly worked in as far as sales, is places that had 6 to 9 to a year month sales cycle, and you just have 25 things at minimum going at once, and hoping that by the end of the quarter, end of the year, that 5, 6, 7 of them hit.
If you're doing if you are gonna get that, then you have to, the idea is to how to get to know fast. Because you don't wanna spend
Yeah.
3 months on something and then the person say, no, you wanna get those no's right away.
Volume.
Yeah, and you want to have a really thick skin to be able to hear these, no, I don't want you, go away.
Swallow was another partner that we used.
Yeah, this is another small company, pretty interesting, provide services using Amazon solution sets and get listed here. Decent one.
They were based out of Atlanta, and it was one of the locations that Amazon couldn't fit people in, so. Amazon had weird rules because of the fact that of Amazon taxes, and the states that said if you have presence in our state, then you gotta pay state taxes. So there was lots of states
Retail influence.
Yes.
Oh my
And so
God.
there was lots of states that were red states that we couldn't have employees even go visit, or they could go, there was all these different rules. depending on
Not
the
even
state.
visit?
Well, some states were totally red. They were red states, and we had to have partners like Slalom go in for us, or we had to do things like meet our customer in New York and give them a limo from New Jersey, where they lived, to New York to have dinner with us and
Wow.
get to
Sounds like
close
a-
the deal.
Tesla dealership, you know, what state
Yeah.
can
And
sell?
And then there were orange and yellow states where we could go there, but there was rules. Like, we could go there, but we couldn't sign contracts in the state.
Yeah, the reason
Or
why
we
this
could
happens
go
at
but not
Amazon, do you
spend
know?
the night.
Do you know why this happens at Amazon? Why?
Sales tax.
Sales tax piece?
The Amazon.com,
Yeah.
the retail operation, if you have presence of this company in your state, like say for Portland, or not, forget Portland,
Oregon,
and not they don't have sales tax either.
right.
So forget that state.
California.
Yeah. So think of if you have California presence in Amazon, anything you buy from Amazon.com will get taxed.
And one
And
of the
you
ways Amazon has
It's a competitive advantage of being
advantage.
online.
It's not having to pay tax.
So people save about 9 to 10% by buying on Amazon instead, which is a huge retail opportunity. And they don't want to miss this for a silly little item called AWS. It's tiny compared to the retail operations.
I thought that was changing though.
It is. This last year I was there, which 2 years ago, they started finally, Texas came over, California came over, Illinois came over, and a bunch of other ones. Amazon doesn't want to negotiate state by state.
Nope.
That's why they're pushing for a federal law. So they're lobbying for like some flat tax at the federal level rather than state. Not to mention, it's ridiculously confusing,
Yes.
this
Yeah,
sales tax
the
laws.
states, you create an app like this, right? Did you?
Yeah, we actually did an app so that we could, so for the state of Washington, depending on your zip code and your address, we would figure out what your.
Right.
Tax liabilities and how do you pay it back to the state and all that.
Right,
Here's
but
an
that's
app
still,
like that.
that's like tax liability. What about like if you're doing retail purchases, candy, gum, paper,
No.
electronics, books, they're all taxed at different levels and at different municipalities and everything. It's like 70,000 tax codes.
In the
Right.
state of
In
Washington,
California.
it's pretty straightforward. And if you
Still
get to-
3,000 tax
If
codes.
you get to,
There's still
if you
3,000.
get to New York, then the tax codes change by block.
Yeah.
Because you have a garment district, and then you have a jewelry, you have a gold district.
By block.
And if you have
Yeah.
by block, the tax changes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's job security.
Well, at Amazon, they said that Washington
So-
had a
That's
3,000
brutal.
different
Items,
tax
yeah.
codes that applied to them, and California had 70,000.
Only.
So that's called a streamlined use tax, and
Yeah.
and we created an app to streamline the unstreamlined tax.
Yep.
The weirdest one was Florida, though. You could only send people for 5 days, and you don't get 5 days, and he gets 5 days. The
There's
whole
a-
company gets 5 days. So to save up for just AWS and they go to the SAP conference, because that was a big deal. We wanted to be president of the SAP conference. They'd be like, all right, you're going down Tuesday, but you're coming back Wednesday night. And if you end up staying longer, you're on your own bill, we're not paying for you. Don't miss your flight. And you go down Wednesday, you gotta come back Wednesday.
The company-wide 5 days in Florida?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so a whole bunch of people like flew down like to a nearby state that they could, I think it was Atlanta, I think they flew into Atlanta, stayed the night there, then would fly in for the day at the SAP conference, then fly back out to Atlanta, so they didn't actually stay there. So we could send like 20 people to the SAP conference.
So
Crazy.
the Avalara is the company. It's software as a service that you plug into your
Your
commerce.
tax codes,
And it's,
nightmare.
Can we just go back to the, what you were diagramming out, like the architecture of the Concur? I just had a couple of questions
Yes.
for you. So web app and the complexity of writing mobile web apps. So I think the question I wanted to try and get after here is, so like with Concur and their mobile apps, they have to write mobile web app code, I'm thinking out loud here, for all of these devices. So like, so it works on an iPhone, so it works on an Android, so it, you know, could work on a Windows phone, blah, 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 blah. So there's that level of complexity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then making sure, you know, whatever the requirements are, you know, for security, for example, to make sure that everything's working correctly for all of that. So that's a ton of code base.
Yes.
And then, really what I'm trying to get after here is, then there's the whole front end piece, from, you know, like from like basically like a portal site, so that basically business users that are dealing with all this data can access that end, right? You know, I think you probably said
web
that that's, no, you probably categorize that as all back end stuff.
So I'll pinpoint a resource that I think you may have either missed a video or something, or seen some examples or not. I want to just check. So I'm going back to our old library where we have a session on native apps and web apps. Did you watch this segment?
Oh, okay.
So-
I didn't see that, no.
Please do. The idea here is described exactly what you're talking about. There is a video, and then there are some interesting links. That this app is actually, if you have what kind of phone do you have? Android?
Yeah.
Android. So open this link, everytimezone.com, and see what happens, and see how different it looks on your phones versus this site. If you haven't seen this, take a moment and go there. This will give you an illustration of a concept of what a web app is and how it looks different on different browsers and works like an HTML5 web app. So here essentially it's a time zone app. I can tell quickly what time it is anywhere. Like in Mumbai, it is this time right now, 9:16,
Oh, that is cool.
and it is HTML, so you can just change. It is beautiful app, nicely done. So try that on the phone. It works. Tablet works. Everywhere it is. It beautifully works. If you have another one, more examples, I would honestly recommend go back here and read through. There are lots of things here. For example, this Pi Guy. If you have an iPhone, open the Pi Guy link. Pi Guy, if you open it here, nothing works. But if you open on iPhone, it's MRGAN, like Murugan, MRGAN.PyGuy. Let me open it up, make it big. So here is the link. Sorry, not here. I'll get there. Hold on. Undo. No, not this. What's the link? I think it is MRGAN/PyGuy. Copy, paste here. Open this and see what shows up.
To install PyGuy, tap the plus button below and choose Add to Home Screen.
Yeah, do that.
All right, plus button.
On the iPhone, it will be beautiful.
What plus button below? I don't see a plus button.
Maybe the instructions are old. Let me try.
Plus button.
Put that on the home screen and then see what shows up.
Put on the home screen.
I mean the front page of the phone. Let me also try. So this is like an old game from iPhone 5 time, iOS 6 time frame. There may be some changes in the
What
instructions.
was the plus button on the old iPhone?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work?
The plus or the add home screen hyperlink doesn't work.
Okay, let me show you. Let me give you revised instruction as I do it. So I open up the MRGAN and it says to add to home screen button. So what you need to do here is there is no plus button. So what you need to do is click the up arrow button in the middle.
Okay.
And when you do that, then you read down below. The third item is add to home screen.
So Safari only.
Yes, Safari only.
What is it again?
So you up arrow. Let me show you. Watch me on the screen. Hope it works. Yeah,
This is
kind
a
of.
landscape
Yeah.
game. Rotate your phone. Yes, sir.
So I rotated it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so here on the bottom right corner, you see this little thing, this arrow, this button here. This is the one you click, right? This one, and then here you find the add to home screen button. That's the revised instruction.
Is this hard to do with the finger? It's like Pac-Man.
Yes, it is Pac-Man game.
Wait, no.
It is Pac-Man game that runs on your browser. Just imagine that.
It's really hard to steer though.
It is hard. It is hard. But imagine the concept here is it's a web application running on your phone as a Pac-Man game. It's pure HTML CSS code, runs from the server, shows up here as a home page icon, which is not an application, does not come from the App Store. You get the point?
Yeah, well, and you're also, so you're not using, the code allows, you're not using a lot of the phone resources to run it, it's happening on the server side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
Yes,
you're
indeed.
reliant upon good communication back and forth for the
There is
game
not much
experience?
communication back and forth in this app because it is what it is, which is it's called Pac-Man, right?
Yeah.
So there is no communication with back and forth. It's one time.
Well, if it's server-side code, though,
No, the only code server side is that it sends you the package, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. That's it. There's no back and forth between here and server because all the game is playing locally. Once it is here, it plays locally. So there is no back and forth.
okay.
In fact, you can disable your Wi-Fi and data plan and still work because there is no.
But you don't have to get it through the Apple distribution.
No, it does not come from the Apple Store. It comes
It's
straight
not
from
an
the
app.
browser.
It's
Is
the
that
browser.
going to be a trend to
It is.
bypass that?
It is. I
In terms
So
of
I have a video on that shows me you haven't watched it. So in a video, you should watch it.
I looked at the titles of the videos and I was like, okay, I know how to use Google Docs. I know how to use Office 365.
But don't
I
skip
understand the
them.
difference between a native and a web app.
You
Good.
don't skip.
But I'm like, but I don't want to sit through an hour long thing on how to use Google Docs. I know how to use Google Docs.
Okay. Then the key difference. I think that's a good point. I guess I get why you may have skipped. I don't want you to skip, but you have apparently skipped. So I think the key thing that we are discussing right now, which we should have discussed last month, I'm assuming you watched the videos, but you apparently did not. The key difference that we are talking about here is in the context of what is called a native app versus web app. What we saw, Pie Guy was a web application.
Yeah.
It was written in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. A native app is written in Objective-C, for example, or Java in your Android phone, for
Right.
example.
So it requires a library, or
Requires-
requires working with a framework, right? So it's more,
yes.
it's object-oriented.
It is self-contained. It comes from the App Store. It requires a 30% cut that Apple will keep. The only way to reach the customer is through the Apple Store, which is a bad idea. Right? If you want freedom and flexibility, you want to go like the Pie Guy. You want to go.
Okay.
go directly to the customer without going through the store. You can prepare and produce your app and give it to the end user without having to play Apple's game or give them 30%. That flexibility will have, there are pros and cons discussed in one of the videos that I talk about. Maybe it is this, which video is that? The first one. Yeah, in this video I talk about it. It's only 28 minutes.
Well, I know the difference between a
Yes.
web and a native app. So
Okay, then at least read through the slides.
Yeah, but you don't get the economic value in terms of understanding the
I just
whole
need to
app.
know how to sell it. I don't need to know how to run a business.
So I go into details about what pros and cons are of web apps and native apps in the slide as well as in video, but apparently you have ignored it. Ouch.
Am I the only one?
No. I think most of you.
It's still bright and shiny. and
You
we
watched
don't
it?
hold it.
Wow, good. Thank you. I should stand up and thank you.
Actually, I really want
But
to
I don't have
compliment you
to
on
put the
something.
date for the home screen.
You have a lot of it.
Works.
Sorry.
Works directly on the.
Yeah, without putting on the home screen, it also works, right? Correct. The developer wants you to put on a home screen so that it becomes an item for you, easy to access.
Easy to
Yeah.
access.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say, you have a lot of tremendous content out there. I mean, comparatively speaking, there are not many people that offer the broad, experience. So, I mean, huge compliment. You do a great job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I
You do a
appreciate
very
that.
good job.
If in having heard that, I would like to reiterate: if you find something wrong or something not in alignment, or if you want to give me feedback, give me right now. Don't give me feedback 3 months down the road. Okay? If you give me feedback right now, I will change it.
Yeah.
I'll fix it. I create it.
Or would your son change it? Is he employed by you?
No, he's not. he has never received any pocket money from me. Never. Ever.
Oh,
Is
Yes.
that true?
Your mom gave you pocket money?
That's
That's what my mom did.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, see, he has not received pocket money, but let me also tell you, he carries my credit card with an unlimited credit line. And he does not spend it though,
That's nice.
but he does.
For emergencies.
Yeah. And by the way, he has his own credit card since he turned, 18? Yeah, so bank companies are like a hawk
Well, the
watching.
second you go to college, they're all the
Yeah.
college mailboxes.
They just offered him, okay, here, credit card. And I said, take it, take one. Not all. Like I did. I took them all. 18, because free t-shirts, right? I took them all. I shouldn't have, but he did not. So that's him. So you get the concept of web app versus native apps. Beautiful.
Here's ultimately my question, and you know what, there's no doubt you've addressed this, but in general, in the industry, talented, basically from a talent management standpoint, obviously the big focus now is finding people that are really good with UI, UX, really people that are really strong with mobile development, and then and really what my question is those lines are getting blurred between front end and middle tier, and finding people that it used to be people were kind of siloed. You're either a front end dude or front end developer, or you're middle tier, or you're back end, or what have you. And all those lines are getting so blurred. And going back to agility, people need to be able to code front and back end, and then also know like the JSON or the XML, the data side of it as well.
So the people who know both ends, the middle tier, front and back end, they're called full stack developers. They can do both. Front end, which is the look and feel part, how it looks, how it renders, how it's pretty, and how it's usable, not just the
Do you
looks.
think that those are a myth, or do you think those people are actually?
They exist. I have seen them.
But they're unusual. They're
They're
unicorns
very
to a degree.
unusual. They're very, very unusual.
When
The-
there's much more demand for, I want people who can do everything. I
Right.
think they're more of a unicorn.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. But they exist, full stack developers. There are other types of developers that are called polyglot developers.
Multilingual.
Multilingual. They speak 9 languages that do not include C and C++ and Python and like me. I actually speak variety of languages, as in human languages, not computer languages. And I'm not counting the Indo-Chinese languages called C++. I call that Indo-Chinese because it's what you see in Microsoft. Half of them are Chinese, the other half is Indians writing code. Must be Indo-Chinese language. That's why Siri understands my accent. Do you know why?
Jeez.
Because it was made over there.
Somebody tested over there. You're tired of hearing the same comments over and over?
I need to get going soon. But what's up with the?
Mine. Where are you headed?
I go meet up with my kids here.
Oh.
The homework stuff. Are you gonna cover the homework?
The quiz.
The quiz part?
Oh, the quiz, and then you asked us to do another pass.
Yes, many of you did. I think you did. You also did. Did you?
Yeah.
You give me a link. So I want to ask you, how did you do it? What did you do? So I'm going to pull up that exercise, and here it is. So this is what you did. Wow, huge. So just talk about it. What did you do? Describe.
So I actually just followed the instructions. I used
That was the homework last time.
I decided to use OpenShift, and I installed it on my VM, RHC,
Mm-hmm.
and it has its own commands to create just it's kind of like a Heroku add, but you say RHC, and it creates its own working directory. So it's a Git repository. And interesting, you don't have to do a git init or git add. It's just doing the RHC setup or RHC add. It does all that stuff for you. And then when you do RHC setup, it'll set up your keys for you.
Keys also, Git also.
And then I said, okay, start a new app, make it a PHP app with this version, and it created it. Which is just is an app that has a index.html file in it. And I went in there, and if you go to the top, I just
Modified it.
I said, "Welcome to Daniels." That was it.
As opposed to Daniel's broiler.
So it was actually pretty easy to do and to deploy.
Yep. Most of these PaaS software platforms as a software are really, really easy. If they're not.
Once you've done it once.
Yes.
Because I noticed the second one was a lot simpler, a lot faster than.
Right. If you know the idea, know the concept,
Right.
it's not a big deal but the key was to understand the concept, what these guys are doing, and where do we make use of these things, in what situation, in what context, why they're relevant to us. That's once you get the kickstart, PaaS is easy.
I did the command line.
Yeah, command line is harder. You can do the web based.
But then
Click.
if it was they had the command line for different operating systems in your Mac command line, Windows command line even, and then but Ubuntu was different than Red Hat's lines.
Yes.
The command lines.
Yeah, the whole thing is different.
So they used Yum
Yum.
on Red Hat Linux.
Yes, Yum is Yellow Dog Update Manager.
And I didn't have to use that I had to do something else for Ubuntu.
You brew.
apt-get. apt-get.
apt-get.
On Ubuntu apt-get, Red Hat is Yum, and in Mac it is brew. Yep. So I think you also did a similar kind of, but not on OpenShift, did you?
I did OpenShift.
OpenShift
with,
also.
Ruby.
I see. Oh, you did Ruby, yes. And if Shahul is back, I want to have him give him some time about the Vagrant work he did. And he said he will do it, a quick demo for us.
I did engineer.
Sweet. Do you have a link?
I realized
destroyed
once
it.
I uploaded it that I uploaded a SQLite one, so
Okay.
app instead of a Postgres. So I was like, all right, but I went through all the steps,
Cool,
figured
cool.
out how it worked,
Cool.
and
Awesome.
used the command line
Yep.
on that one mostly.
So
So how are you on our quiz?
So I have not seen your results because I'm not even sure if all of you actually did it. So now that I know, I will actually prepare the summaries and give it to you one-on-one. And maybe next time spend some time and give you my thoughts on what the quiz was. By the way, how was the quiz?
Easy.
Easy. Any?
There were some things that we hadn't discussed directly, and I had to look them up.
Awesome.
But there was one thing that was not, that we hadn't covered all, but other than
I
that.
see. I see. So that may we may have missed. I will cover that specifically. So Shahul, do you want to come up and do the vagrant stuff?
Sure.
Bring it on.
Yes, definitely.
So here, make sure you read the video and reference material. There is some cloud operations videos and a PowerPoint presentation.
It's the same thing, right, as the model one, or it's
Similar. The content is different. So in here, if you look at, let me zoom it the right size. So you have, as you log into this site called library.cloudgenius, which is different from the earlier library link was different. This time the new link is this, right? So remember this link, and I will email it also. You go here, then you see this. You see the welcome screen. And in here, on the second page, you already done that part, which is the paperwork required. So you hit the blue logo, and it will take you straight to DevOps right now, which is this button here, up on top. So you just click there either way, your choice. There's nothing in architecture. This thing is building up, and I'm migrating content from other older locations onto this location. But your focus should be the DevOps link, and you begin looking at these items. So the links here in the fourth column, it has links. So you click there and you get to the video page.
Amazon outage, fix Netflix. I was there. That was a nightmare.
Okay.
I can tell you all about it.
Yes. So there's some of
It was
these.
like my second month. That was completely insane.
So here is a 16-minute video.
Cloud Operations Management.
Oh, shut up. This guy talks too much. And here, the presentation. So you review that. Then there are some back to the link. There are some links to read and review some more content. After you're done here, you go back to the DNS refresher video. This time I described DNS. You probably know this segment already. There is some write-up that you want to read here, and goes on. So I'll be adding more content as we progress, but the focus should be read this one the next time. And we'll talk more in the class, and we'll talk in the context of Chef as an example, and proceed towards with the idea of a project you want to do that will strengthen your skill gap. So keep that focus. Make sure you have that. And with that, I invite Shahul, and his write-up is also available in the Cloud DevOps segment, the very last item there in the list. The very last one is here, the introduction to Vagrant. Thank you, Shahul. Huh?
That's on, yeah, we got it.
No, it opened in this tab. Yeah, there it is.
Why can't I do that?
Did you press Control or something? Or?
No. See.
You can just yank my cable out and maybe use the cable already. So just shut down this and take this. Use this one. upside down. You can mirror it, so it's easier.
Okay, cool. So I won't go through the text content of the Vagrant. I'm not sure how many of you know about the Vagrant. It's basically rather than each developer creating their own image on their machines for installing Perl or Python or PHP, Java versions, and by going through a bunch of documentation to set up their development machine. And then you find that some developers having Mac, some developers got Windows certain version, certain service packs, and they download different version of Java or whatever the software is, and then they develop and it goes to production, it doesn't work. And they always come back and say, no, I followed the instruction and it works on my machine, but why is it not working on the machine? Or the other excuses, hey, I got a brand new machine and I got everything pre-installed. I don't know how to uninstall or set this up. So a lot of challenges comes in with the different versions of softwares on the developer machines, right? So this software we have here. I'm just going to find the Vagrant, which was developed by I think one of the college graduates. Now he works for I think not with Chef. Who's the competitor for Chef? Puppet. He works for Puppet now for the last 4 months.
Who?
The Vagrant developer.
Okay. I
Yeah.
did not know.
He worked for with Puppet for automating stuff on Vagrant.
Nice.
Yeah.
Michelle Hashimoto.
Hashimoto. So he's got a pretty good presentation, 25 minutes presentation on YouTube about advanced Vagrant topics.
I see.
Yeah. So
The link, just email us the link.
I'll send it. Yeah. Very-
HashiCorp search, it will be easy. But yeah,
Yeah.
please send.
So I have
I go into loops with those.
I have my Office desktop with the Vagrant configured, but I'm not able to connect to the Office desktop. But I'll try to show it up with the virtual box. So this is the Ubuntu Unix came with the virtual the virtual box given by Nilesh a couple of weeks back. So what I did is I just installed Vagrant software here, and so I have a Vagrant here. This is pre-installed, and the prerequisites are you need to have a virtual box or any equivalent virtual technologies. You can have a VMware virtual environment, or you can use with AWS or any platform. The Vagrant supports that. And top of it, you need Vagrant software itself. Once you install the software, let's say you have this directory called home Vagrant, and then I don't have any files or folders in here. All you need to do is create a file. You need to create a unit. You create you initializing Vagrant environment by running program. Please check the administrator. Let me go back here. Oh, sorry, I'm already on a Vagrant machine. So I'm going to say Vagrant destroy. Then I'll start all over again.
I think you need to do Control D and then do it.
Control D. Okay, I'm out of here. So I am on host name. I am on the workstation which was given by Nilesh. So let me go on to the folder, which is the Vagrant folder where I've installed actually not installed Vagrant. I created a folder called Shahul_Vagrant. Under Shahul_Vagrant, I have a file called Vagrant file. This file is getting created when you initialize the Vagrant for the first time. So let me go back and let me go to Shahul_Vagrant.
You know what you can do is create CD,
Yeah,
MKD,
MKD. Okay, Nilesh.
just begin from scratch.
Okay.
That will work.
PWD. So I have
CD
Nilesh, and I have no content in this folder. So now I want to create the new Vagrant image.
So Nilesh is empty right now. We just created it, right? So we do a Vagrant init there. And what this does is creates one file. The file is called vagrant file. And we delete its contents. And we put what Shahul says in that file.
Right. This has got a bunch of contents in there. So it's got some instruction on how to use that. So now what I'm going to do is I already pre-created some of the vagrant file configuration, which I have it on the documentation there. So let me go and copy slash Shahul underscore vagrant to here. So if I have that,
Copy the selected file.
Yeah.
You cannot go copy like this.
Okay. Vagrant.
/vagrant file.
All right.
No space.
Stupid.
Demo anxiety. Pull down.
All right. So vagrant file is not a directory. Dot.
Use tabs. Back. Tab slash.
Tab slash.
Yeah.
No space there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Go slow, go here, go one more here.
Oh,
And then
I got it. Okay. So if I go onto this folder and then cat vagrant file, and I have, this is the configuration inside the vagrant file, which basically does is configure the vagrant box with the steps given in the O. So O in the in the O variable, I have defined the vagrant box name as precise 32, and you have the image copied from this link. So we have a bunch of vagrant boxes available. If you go here, vagrant boxes. Vagrant boxes. I'm missing T here.
.es. Yeah.
.es.
No. .es. Double ES.
Okay.
With only one ES.
Just vagrant box.
Oh, vagrant box dot .es.
Yes.
Vagrant boxes. Vagrant box in Spain.
Vagrant box dot .es. Let me do it
yes,
right.
that'll work.
All right.
Lots of boxes.
And that's in
There are-
Spain, right?
Yes.
So tons of boxes here. All you do is just copy the link. If you want, say for example, I want the Debian this version of Linux. Just copy the link and go back to the configuration file and paste that with URL. So that basically it goes and grabs the vagrant box from there. Or their alternate option is, I saw another site called vagrant images. If I search for that, vagrantup.com. This is a paid service. You need to go in there and then you can create your own image here. So and then I copy syncing of some of the folder from /app to /var and configuring the IP address. So you can set up an IP address. You can do a port forwarding, bunch of network configuration. You can do it here. And I also have a call setup.sh at the end. So I have a setup.sh. Let me copy that file also here. And I'll show you what I have in setup.sh. Setup.sh ls cat setup.sh. So I basically go and get the Apache PHP and start the Apache. So you can have install MySQL command. You install Ruby, Perl, whatever the version you want, you put it here. And all that the developer needs to do is that can be automated as well. Now I have a setup.sh as well as a vagrant file, and all I say is vagrant up. It goes and grabs the image from the URL you gave, it configures the way you want it to be configured, it brings the image on your machine. Now you have full-blown, pre-configured, with the correct configuration in your dev box for the developers to start the development.
So then you just need to pass around the vagrant file and the shell script to everybody.
Yeah, you can put it in the Git,
Right.
and then they can get the image from the Git and then work on, or you can automate that with Puppet or Chef. So a lot of
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand those. So this allows you to essentially have like an image, right? And then once it's passed around, everyone's installing from the same base.
No, actually, it's not just a pure image because image you can get it from the different sites, right? But
Yeah.
this is image with pre-configured software for the development,
It's the environment you want to
the
pass
complete
around.
environment.
So everybody works in the same context. So my app, if it runs on my machine, will also run on yours, by definition.
And more of this, well, I have Ruby 1.9.3, well, you have Ruby 1.9.2, and so there's.
But and that's what I'm trying to get at here. How when you're doing this, how do you are you downloading whatever Ruby version it is, and then whatever this Vagrant installation is going to be, then that means that Ruby version is consistent for who any.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you
All
define
the
that
developers.
in a setup.sh.
The shell script.
That file,
Gotcha.
for example, that's one of the examples. You can use shell to install what you need, or you can use chef to configure the way you like, or Puppet, or Ansible, or Salt, or God knows what. So all providers are available
Yeah.
now.
And I talked to one of the developer in
So you can see the green segment is actually installing Apache right now. It will be installing it very soon. It's doing an apt-get update segment right now. But the next step would be that you will see it will install Apache, and then it will enable Apache service. And then what Shahul will do is open up the website, internal local, and it will show Apache running.
Right. And then I'm assuming you can also use this same strategy to basically deploy out to your production environment. So like a box goes down, you have all this pre-configured, you just stand up your box and then, basically deploy your production environment over again.
Can you comment on that? I'm not sure if we can use the same copy. It's basically the copy will be all in Git, right?
So what you pass around is a Git repository
Yeah.
containing setup.sh, for example, Vagrant file. That's it. You don't pass the image. The image is centrally stored somewhere else.
Right.
And everybody will pull the same image from the same central location. In this case, I think we're using Vagrant boxes or Vagrant up.
Mm-hmm.
So one image provided by Vagrant Maker is what we're using in this example. You can have your own company-wide image that everybody in the company uses and use that as a base image, and then have your configuration defined for your work environment in your team, pass that around to everybody. So the new employee comes on board, first day we would like him to push a git commit on expedia.com. Can he do it? That's the essential outcome. Now ask him, can you have a developer, new developer, first day, push a change to expedia.com goes live? Are you capable of that?
No.
Probably not.
No.
We want to go there. How do we get there? By allowing systems for a new hire. Day one, the job should be
Go
that
develop.
you go develop and push a tiny change, like change a little thing. But make sure you go end to end all the way to expedia.com and go live. Very first day, you become instantly productive.
And
I don't
for
think Expedia is doing that today, but
Yeah.
they want to.
part of it they are doing it, but some groups it takes at least 3 weeks for the developer to get the machine ready for him to develop.
Yeah.
Right? It's very
Yeah,
complex.
this whole building of the development environment thing has been a nightmare for the past ever.
Exactly. So I talked to a
It's suddenly
developer.
getting a lot simpler.
Well, and you think conceptually,
Between
like,
IDEs and Heroku's and these
Mhm.
things and automation, it's just it used to be a complete and utter nightmare.
right? And just like going back to like when a new person onboards at a company, they get a laptop, like from a desktop services standpoint, that part's not complicated. Everyone can be handed a laptop with whatever the corporate image is going to be. But now we're talking about developers being able to.
The developer's image is different from corporate image.
Yeah.
Corporate image is, almost silly compared to a developer's
Yeah.
image. It's silly and trivial.
It's like what you buy from Best Buy is the corporate image, and then what you really need to do is wipe almost half of that out and
That's
put
exactly
real
what I
stuff
do.
on.
The moment IT gives me a machine, the first thing I do is clean up the whole thing, everything, including the operating system. I delete the whole thing and begin from there. I've been doing that for years and years, and I do that even today because I don't trust IT. So I don't know what they're giving me. So I want to put my own OS. That's how it works.
You're getting more space.
No,
And
I-
usually if you
I
say, oh, I
understand.
run Linux, they're like, whatever, we don't want to deal with you anyway.
So I understand it. I've been on both sides of it. But from a governance standpoint, you don't want people that are in your corporation running their own quote unquote non-standard images or configuration, right? Because if there's a breach,
that's why you standardize through tools like this.
So what do you do with this file now?
Now I got everything installed. I just ran the Vagrant up. Now, for example, I install Apache as part of it. So if I go to the browser, let me verify my IP address. Cat Vagrant file.
So is this running a virtual machine under your virtual
Yes.
machine?
Yes.
VM under VM.
So while this is coming up, so I can connect to this machine now. Inside, the way I connect to this machine is
Vagrant SSH. VM and a VM is slow.
Vagrant SSH.
By the way, you have a very high-end laptop, so it can work, but don't try what he's
I
trying.
don't dare do it on mine.
Exactly. Do not try what he did. I'll tell you a different way of trying the same thing for Windows machines. I will need to borrow one of your machines to show you if you're interested in that direction.
So I have a developer today. I was talking to him. His job is to develop on Apache Flu and a little bit on Hadoop, and he needs to work on a ETL tool called Uzi on top of the Hadoop. All the framework he implemented in the Vagrant image. So all he does is just run this Vagrant up, and he got entire setup on his machine.
Nice. Yeah. So if you have a powerful machine, you can pull off tricks like this, and having a complex setup like what he's talking about, Hadoop and the other associated animals. They have all things named after some kind of an animal, so that animal kingdom in Hadoop software, you can install that, configure that for a developer in a Vagrant file, which can be as tiny as this file that you saw. And so it's Vagrant destroy.
I have a question.
No, Vagrant halt.
Halt and then eventually destroy.
Setup.sh. That part actually is time dependent, right? Depends on when you run the setup.sh. The apt-get update will get whatever is the most current at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that means when you Vagrant up, this developer would Vagrant up last week versus the next developer.
You're absolutely right. That is a problem in using setup.sh. That's why we don't recommend that way. That's why we use Chef. Because in Chef you can specify pinpoint. I want that specific version. His setup.sh file is very generic. It just says apt-get whatever. It doesn't call out what version number. Right?
So by the way, since I stopped the Vagrant instance and I'm bringing it up again, it won't take that long because it's already installed. It just goes through and see what needs to be installed. It's already installed, then it will just bring it up. And tomorrow you are changing the version of the Perl or Python or Apache. Just go and modify the setup.sh and then say stop and start. Then it will bring up the name.
Right. I just want to go back and make sure I understand what May was bringing up though. So is that a versioning issue?
No, version control issue.
Yeah, okay.
So you have to, she wants to specify exactly what version of Ruby, what version of Apache you have, and how you got it. And that specification can be in great level of detail specified in a recipe, which becomes a part of a cookbook, which is what we will talk the next time when we meet, is about how these elements are structured, what are the nomenclature, what does it mean, and then we eventually build our own cookbook here and run it in say DigitalOcean or Amazon or maybe HP Cloud if it works. If HP Cloud works, I mean, our script will work, but if HP Cloud works, we use it there, or Google Compute Engine. See if it is showing up.
The Apache is up. It's working.
And so the key summary of what he just did is he's able to reproduce this exact same environment on anybody's machine here in just a few steps. And the steps are written down on the write-up that he gave.
And if you want to
you
delete,
can replicate that across the machine. So you use a Vagrant destroy, and it destroys the computer.
your image is gone.
Right. So basically that wipes everything clean, and then if you repeat the sequence,
You reproduce the same.
Same thing.
wash and rinse. So basically, it's that reiterate that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Cool.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Nilesh.
Good work.
Good job.
So when do we meet next time? Is it Saturday?
Saturday.
Yep.
10 o'clock.
So the first video by Saturday, 10 o'clock. Or first video by Monday.
Make sure you watch video tonight.
Which one?
The one let me show it to you. I cannot. But go to the DevOps page.
First one on the DevOps page.
First one on the DevOps link.
By Saturday.
Ideally, do it sooner. Do it sooner. It's a short 16-minute video, not that long. It may be boring.
It's not boring.
Introduction to cloud options.
A lot of,
Alright.
a lot of repeat, but helps to cement it in.
Repeat? Am I repeating in videos? Or
No, at least I haven't seen.
Thank you.
Well, there's
No,
some-
you're building on concepts.
Well, you repeat DNS.
yeah, the DNS part you can skip. You know it. You know it.
We can do it.
I went down to foundations of Chef already.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Or
Yeah, those parts I'm still writing them. I'm not ready to give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, but I understand you're reading
I
it.
just, I was curious about Chef, wanted to get a little.